Meat and Motherhood. Chapter 1: The Miracle of the Sloppy Kim. The thing about running a sandwich shop in a strip mall between a payday loan place and a vape store is that you meet every species of desperate human being God ever squeezed out onto this godforsaken earth. Sukmi Kim had seen them all belly up to her counter at Kim's Killer Meat Shack, the divorced dads spending their last 20 before child support hit, the third shift nurses who smelled like antiseptic in defeat, the teenagers who just discovered that sex wasn't as good as everyone said it would be, and the elderly folks who wanted anyone, to talk to them like they still mattered. But today, on this particular Tuesday in August when the air conditioning had shit the bed and the heat was making the meat smell like a crime scene, Sukmi was dealing with her own special brand of chaos. "Mama." The voice came from the kitchen, shrill and accusatory. "Jaden ate all the fucking pickles again." That was Destiny, child number 4, age 14, who had decided last month that she was a vegetarian despite working in a sandwich shop that served nothing but meat. She had her father's temper, whoever he was. Sukmi had narrowed it down to 3 possibilities, none of whom she'd bothered to track down. Language. Sukmi hollered back, not because she gave a shit about profanity but because a family of Mormons had just walked in, and Mormons, she'd learned, tipped better when you at least pretended to have standards. She slapped on her customer service smile, the one that made her look like she might actually enjoy being alive. "Welcome to Kim's Killer Meat Shack, home of the Sloppy Kim. What can I get you beautiful people today?" The Sloppy Kim was Sukmi's masterpiece, her Mona Lisa, her reason for existing in this vale of tears. She'd invented it during her 3rd pregnancy when she'd been craving something that didn't exist, the tangy, sloppy mess of a sloppy Joe, the savory looseness of a loose meat sandwich, but with her own twist, a Korean-style gochujang mayo, though she'd never been to Korea and had no interest in going, crispy fried onions, and this was the genius part, a layer of cream cheese that had no business being there but somehow made the whole thing sing like a choir of slightly drunk angels. People drove from 3 counties over for a Sloppy Kim. She'd been written up in the local paper. Some food blogger with 200,000 Instagram followers had called it an abomination that somehow tastes like America's ID made flesh. Sukmi had framed that quote and hung it over the cash register. 6 Sloppy Kims," the Mormon dad said, eyes darting nervously between Sukmi and the stained menu board. "And 6 waters?" "Water's free, honey." "And you want the regular or the XXX?" The Mormon mom's eyes widened. The dad coughed. What's the XXX?" "Same sandwich, but I add jalapenos, pepper jack, and a little something extra that'll make you see God. Fair warning though, it's called the XXX because it'll fuck you up 3 ways, going in, sitting in your stomach, and coming out the other end." The Mormon children giggled. Their mother looked like she wanted to speak to a manager. Sukmi was the manager. "Regular," the dad squeaked. As Sukmi rang them up, the front door banged open, and in walked her best friend since childhood, LaShonda Washington, carrying what appeared to be a designer handbag that definitely cost more than Sukmi's monthly rent. LaShonda's arms, withered and twisted from a childhood illness that doctors had given some name Sukmi couldn't remember, clutched the bag against her chest. People always stared. LaShonda always stared back harder. "Girl," LaShonda announced to the restaurant at large, "you are not going to believe what I just saw in the parking lot." "Hold that thought." Sukmi handed the Mormon dad his change. "Destiny. 6 regulars. And tell Jaden if he ate those pickles, he's buying more with his own money." "He's 9, Mama. He doesn't have money." "Then he better get creative." Sukmi turned back to LaShonda, who had somehow maneuvered herself onto a stool despite her arms, a feat of determination Sukmi had witnessed 1,000 times and still found impressive. LaShonda had been born with arthrogryposis, that was the word, which left her arms curled and small, the hands clenched like little pink lobster claws. It had never stopped her from doing a goddamn thing she wanted to do, which was one of the reasons Sukmi loved her. "So?" Sukmi prompted. So, LaShonda leaned in, her gold hoop earrings swinging. "Your boy Marcus is out there in a suit." "A suit, Sukmi? When's the last time the child wore a suit?" "Marcus." child number 3, age 19. The good one. The one who gave her hope that maybe she hadn't completely fucked up this whole motherhood thing. He had a job interview at that investment firm downtown, Sukmi said, feeling a strange flutter in her chest that might have been pride or indigestion. Said he wanted to break the cycle or some shit. I told him nobody in our family's ever broken anything but promises and furniture. Well, he's out there on his phone, crying and laughing at the same time, so either he got the job or he's having a mental breakdown. Before Sukmi could respond, Marcus burst through the door, tears streaming down his face, a smile so wide it looked painful. Mama! Mama! He was practically levitating. I got it. I got the job. 60,000 a year, Mama. 60,000. With benefits. Health insurance, Mama. The whole restaurant turned to look. The Mormon smiled politely. Lashonda whooped. And Sukmi felt something crack open in her chest, something that might have been joy or terror, or the realization that one of her children might actually escape this place. That's my boy, she managed, her voice thick. That's my fucking boy. Marcus hugged her, lifting her off the ground despite being string bean thin, and for a moment, everything was perfect. For one shining moment, Sukmi Kim felt like maybe she'd done something right. That's when Destiny screamed from the kitchen. Not the annoyed scream or the angry scream, the other scream. The one that meant something was very, very wrong. Sukmi ran, Lashonda hobbling after her, Marcus frozen by the counter. In the kitchen, Destiny stood pressed against the wall, pointing at the back door. Little Jaden, age 9, missing front tooth, dinosaur t-shirt, stood in the doorway. His eyes were completely white, rolled back in his head. His mouth was moving, but the voice that came out wasn't his. It was deeper, older, wrong. The melons, not Jaden, said in that terrible voice. Tell Ricky the melons aren't melons. Tell him before the guns come. Tell him before they all come. Then Jaden blinked, his eyes rolled forward, and he looked around confused. Why's everyone looking at me weird? Sukmi's hands were shaking. This was the third time this month. The doctors said it was seizures. But Sukmi knew better. Her grandmother had been a Mudaing back in Korea, not that Sukmi had ever met her or gave a shit about Korean mysticism, but she'd heard the stories. She knew what it looked like when someone saw things they shouldn't see. Jaden, baby, go sit down, she said quietly. But the pickles. Forget the damn pickles. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and scrolled to Ricky's number. Ricky. Child number 1, age 22. The one she tried not to think about too much. The one who called her once a month from different burner phones, always asking if she'd seen anyone watching the shop, always paranoid, always into something he wouldn't explain. The call went straight to voicemail. Ricky, she said, it's your mother. Jaden had another episode. He said something about melons that aren't melons and guns. I don't know what the fuck you're into, but... The back door exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. And standing there, silhouetted against the late afternoon sun, was a man in a Hawaiian shirt holding what appeared to be several watermelons. Behind him, Sukmi could see at least 3 other men, all of them holding very large, very illegal-looking weapons. The man with the melons smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Sukmi Kim, he said pleasantly. We need to talk about your son. And these melons. Because I'm pretty sure these aren't full of fruit anymore. He dropped one. It hit the concrete and split open, and instead of red flesh and black seeds, there were bricks. Lots of bricks. Wrapped in plastic. Definitely not fruit. Oh, said Lashonda from behind her, this is not good. And that's when the shooting started. Chapter 2, Foreign Accent Syndrome and Other Disasters. The first bullet went through the rotating pie case, shattering Sukmi's last piece of cherry pie and embedding itself in the wall behind the register. The second bullet took out the framed abomination quote, which felt somehow more personally offensive than being shot at. Everybody down! Sukmi screamed, though most people were already scrambling under tables. The Mormon family had flattened themselves like they'd practiced for this, which maybe they had. Sukmi didn't know what Mormons did in their spare time. The man in the Hawaiian shirt, tropical flowers on a background the color of arterial bleeding, stepped fully into the kitchen, watermelon that wasn't a watermelon still in his hand. His friends fanned out behind him, their machine guns looking absurdly large in her small sandwich shop, like someone had brought cruise missiles to a knife fight. "Nobody has to die today," Hawaiian shirt said cheerfully. "We just need to know where Ricky is, and we'll be on our way." Simple transaction. "I don't know where my son is," Sukmi said, hands raised, her mind racing through every maternal failure that had led to this moment. "He doesn't tell me shit. We're not close like that." "That's unfortunate." Hawaiian shirt gestured with the melon. "Because these 20 kilos of heroin were supposed to go to Dallas. Instead, they ended up in Fort Worth. And your boy Ricky was supposed to make the switch in Garland, but he never showed. So now I'm out product, my boss is out patience, and you're the only leverage I got." Lashonda, still behind the counter, had somehow managed to hit the silent alarm with her foot, a maneuver Sukmi had watched her practice but never thought she'd need. The police would come. Eventually. In this neighborhood, eventually could mean anything from 5 minutes to never. "Look," Sukmi tried, "Ricky's an adult. I don't control him. I couldn't control him when he was 5, and I sure as hell can't control him now." That's when the front door opened. Everyone turned. Even Hawaiian shirt turned, which was his first mistake. Standing in the doorway, backlit like some kind of cowboy messiah, was Todd Pennington. Todd fucking Pennington, whom Sukmi had married in a Vegas chapel in 2017 after knowing him for approximately 72 hours, whom she divorced 31 days later when she realized he collected Victorian-era medical equipment as a hobby, and whom she hadn't seen since the day he'd moved his bone saws and chloroform bottles out of her garage. Todd was holding a gun. Not a machine gun like the bad guys, just a regular handgun, but he held it like he knew what he was doing. "Sukmi," Todd said calmly, "these gentlemen bothering you?" "Todd, what the actual fuck?" Hawaiian shirt swung his machine gun toward Todd. Todd shot him in the shoulder, not the chest, not the head, just the shoulder, precise as surgery. Hawaiian shirt screamed and dropped the melon brick. It rolled under a table where one of the Mormon children was hiding. The other 3 gunmen spun toward Todd, and that's when everything went to hell in a very specific way. Todd wasn't alone. Behind him came 6 guys in tactical gear, but not police tactical gear, private security, the kind you only saw in Garland when someone from Dallas decided to play cowboy in the suburbs. They moved like water, like violence choreographed, and within seconds, 2 more of the gunmen were on the ground, wounded but alive. The 4th gunman, smarter or more desperate than his friends, grabbed the nearest hostage. It was Destiny. "No!" Sukmi lunged, but Lashonda caught her with one withered arm, stronger than it looked. "Don't," Lashonda hissed. "Let them handle it." The gunman backed toward the shattered kitchen door, Destiny held against his chest, gun to her head. She was crying, mascara running down her face, and Sukmi felt something primal and murderous rise in her throat. "You let her go," Sukmi said quietly, "or I will spend the rest of my life making sure you suffer. I will learn your name. I will learn your mother's name. I will burn down everything you've ever loved." Big talk for someone whose daughter's about to die. Destiny stomped on his foot, elbowed him in the ribs, and when he loosened his grip for just a second, she dropped like a stone. One of Todd's security guys tossed the gunman, and he went down convulsing. "That's my girl," Sukmi whispered. The whole thing had taken maybe 90 seconds. Hawaiian shirt and his crew were zip-tied on the floor, bleeding but alive. The Mormon dad had pissed himself. Marcus was still frozen by the counter, his new suit splattered with cherry pie. And Todd Pennington stood there, holstering his gun like he'd just finished a routine grocery trip. "You want to explain," Sukmi said slowly, "what the fuck just happened?" Todd smiled. It was the smile she'd fallen for in Vegas, the one that made him look like a sad puppy who'd just learned to read. I'm in private security now. Executive protection. I was doing a job next door at the payday loan place embezzlement investigation and I heard the shooting. He paused. You look good, Sukmi, motherhood suits you. I have 6 kids, Todd. 6. I look like a leather couch that's been left in the rain. A very attractive leather couch. The police arrived 17 minutes later, which was actually pretty good for this neighborhood. They took statements, called ambulances, and acted like a shootout in a sandwich shop was just another Tuesday, which in this part of town, it kind of was. One of the Mormon kids had taken shrapnel from the pie case, just a scratch, really, but enough to need stitches. The family was remarkably calm about it. Sukmi gave them free sloppy Kims for life, which seemed to make everything okay. As the police were loading Hawaiian Shirt and his friends into cars, Hawaiian Shirt locked eyes with Sukmi through the window. He smiled. Not the pleasant smile from before, but something worse. A promise. They'll be back, Lashonda said quietly. I know. Sukmi pulled out her phone and called the number she'd been avoiding for 2 years. It rang 4 times before a voice answered, young, male, suspicious. Who's this? Cameron, it's your mother. I need to talk to your father. Silence. Then, he's right here. Todd walked over, and Sukmi realized she was going to say something stupid. Something she'd regret. But her kids were in danger, and Todd had just saved them, and maybe owing him something was better than being dead. You want to come to dinner? She asked. Tonight? Todd's face did something complicated. Yeah, I'd like that. By that evening, Sukmi's house looked like a Victoria's Secret if Victoria's Secret was that she was preparing for the apocalypse. She'd called a security company, not Todd's company, a different one, because she wasn't that desperate and they'd come out within 2 hours. Now there were bars on every window, motion sensors in every corner, 3 different alarm systems with 3 different codes, and enough camera equipment to film a true crime documentary. Mama, Destiny called from the living room, I can't open the front door. Use the code. I did use the code. It's not working. Did you try all 3 codes? Why are there 3 codes? Because men with machine guns knew where they lived, Sukmi thought but didn't say. Because her oldest son was mixed up in something that involved 20 kilos of heroin and people who smiled while threatening murder. Because she'd failed as a mother in ways she was only beginning to understand. Try 2-4-6-8, she shouted instead. There was a beep, a click, and the sound of Destiny finally getting the door open. Todd stood on the porch, holding a bottle of wine and looking uncomfortable. Nice bars, he said. Very medieval dungeon chic. Get in before the motion sensors trigger. Dinner was awkward in the way that only dinner with an ex-husband you barely knew could be awkward. Sukmi had made pot roast, which was one of the 3 things she could cook that wouldn't give people food poisoning. Marcus was there, still in his suit, trying to make small talk. Destiny was there, quieter than usual, probably processing the whole gun-to-head thing. Jaden was there, eating mashed potatoes with his hands despite being told not to. Cameron's door remained closed. Upstairs, behind 6 locks and God knew what else, Sukmi's 16-year-old son continued his 2-year isolation. She tried everything: threats, bribes, reverse psychology, calling the police, calling therapists. Nothing worked. He took meals at the door. He used the bathroom when everyone was asleep. He never came out. Todd kept glancing at the ceiling. Cameron still. Yeah. Does he know I'm here? I slipped a note under his door. He didn't respond, which is pretty much his standard communication style. Todd nodded. They ate in silence for a while. Then, I could try talking to him. After dinner. You can try. Hundreds of dollars in therapy says you'll fail. But there was something in Todd's voice, some certainty, some knowing, that made Sukmi wonder if maybe, just maybe, he understood something she didn't. After dinner, while Marcus did dishes and Destiny retreated to her room to text her friends about her near-death experience, Todd went upstairs. Sukmi followed at a distance, curious despite herself. Todd knocked on Cameron's door. Cameron? It's Todd. Your dad. Sort of. I know it's been a while, and I know things ended badly with your mom and me, but I heard about what's been going on, and I think maybe I understand. Silence. When I was 17, Todd continued, I had my wisdom teeth out. Routine surgery. But when I woke up, I was speaking with a British accent. Not American trying to sound British, but actual British. From Manchester, the doctors said. I'd never been to Manchester. I'd never been out of Texas. But for 6 months, I sounded like I should be drinking tea with the Queen. More silence. But Sukmi heard something, a shift, a presence near the door. They called it foreign accent syndrome, Todd said. Super rare. Something to do with brain trauma and speech patterns. Eventually it went away, but during those 6 months, I didn't leave my room either. Because how do you explain to people that you went to sleep as Todd from Dallas and woke up as some British stranger? How do you explain that your own voice doesn't belong to you anymore? The door opened. Just a crack. Cameron's face appeared gaunt, pale, 2 years of avoiding sunlight evident in every feature. You too, he whispered. But the voice wasn't Cameron's voice from 2 years ago. It was higher, softer, with an accent that sounded vaguely Eastern European. You too, Todd confirmed gently. And just like that, Sukmi understood. Her son hadn't been isolating out of depression or anxiety or teenage weirdness. He'd been isolating because his voice had become a stranger's voice, and he didn't know how to exist in a world where he opened his mouth and someone else came out. We can work on this, Todd said. Together. It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. It just happens sometimes. Cameron's eyes filled with tears. He nodded, just a little, then closed the door again. But it felt different this time. Not a locking out, but a retreat before a forward motion. Progress, maybe. Downstairs, Sukmi leaned against the wall and tried not to cry. Lashonda had let herself in through the security system's chaos. She had all 3 codes and found Sukmi there. You okay, girl? I don't know. Maybe? Todd might have just fixed something I couldn't fix. Men, Lashonda said sagely, are occasionally useful for something besides child support and disappointment. They went to the kitchen where Todd was making tea, actual tea, in Sukmi's stupid novelty teacups shaped like kangaroos that she'd bought during a brief Australian phase. He handed her one, and they sat at her kitchen table with its new panic button installed underneath, just in case, and for a moment, everything felt almost normal. That's when Jaden wandered in, his eyes that strange white rolled back way again. The Dallas man knows about the trolleys, he said in that wrong voice. Tell Marcus the trolleys carry more than people. Tell him before Fort Worth finds out. Tell him before the wigwam burns. Then he blinked, normal again, and reached for a kangaroo teacup full of milk. Sukmi and Todd exchanged looks. I don't suppose your security company handles psychic children? Sukmi asked. That's outside my expertise. Marcus came in from the living room, his phone in his hand, his face ashen. Mama, I need to tell you something. Oh God. Not another disaster. Not tonight. The investment firm I'm working for? They sent me all this paperwork to fill out. Background checks, medical history, emergency contacts. He paused. They require STD testing. Full panel. And I tested positive for chlamydia. The silence that followed was broken only by Jaden slurping his milk. Okay, Sukmi said slowly. Okay. That's treatable. That's not a big deal. you take antibiotics, you get better, you tell your partners. Partner, Marcus corrected miserably. Just one. And they're going to kill me when I tell them. They? Todd looked confused. Yes, they. River uses they/them pronouns. And they're going to be so mad, and I don't know how to tell them, and what if they break up with me, and... Marcus. Sukmi took his hand. Baby. If River breaks up with you because you got an STD, which happens to almost everyone at some point, by the way, then River isn't worth your time. You tell them, you get treated, you move forward. That's it. But what if? No what ifs. You call them right now. You be honest. You be responsible. And if they can't handle that, fuck them. She paused. Not literally. Don't fuck them until the chlamydia clears. But you know what I mean. Marcus laughed despite himself, pulled out his phone, and stepped outside to make the call. Through the window, Sukmi watched him pace nervously, then start talking, then sit down on the porch steps in relief. It was going to be okay. That, at least, was going to be okay. Destiny appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding her laptop. Mama, people are posting about the shooting. It's all over Instagram. Someone filmed it. We're kind of famous. Wonderful. That'll help when the drug dealers come back. Actually, Destiny said slowly, it might. Look at the comments. People are saying they're going to boycott anyone who messes with our shop. They're organizing protests. Someone started a GoFundMe to replace the broken stuff. We're at like $12,000 already. Sukmi looked at the screen. Hundreds of comments. Thousands of shares. Her little sandwich shop, her stupid sloppy Kims, had somehow become a symbol of community resilience or working class struggle or something equally improbable. Well, she said, I guess that's something. 3 weeks later, they'd all adjusted to living in Fort Knox. The security systems became routine. Everyone memorized all 3 codes. The bars on the windows stopped looking quite so oppressive and started looking almost cozy, like they were living in a very safe wigwam. Cameron had started emerging from his room for brief periods, practicing his old American accent with Todd's help while they worked through the foreign accent syndrome together. Marcus was clean, River had forgiven him, and his job was going well enough that he'd bought Sukmi a new blender to replace the one that had died in 2019. Business at Kim's Killer Meat Shack had tripled. Apparently, getting shot at made you authentic. The food blogger came back and wrote a whole piece about surviving and thriving in America's forgotten communities, which was pretentious as hell but brought in even more customers. Ricky still hadn't called. The police had no leads on his whereabouts. Hawaiian Shirt and his friends had made bail and disappeared. But for now, at least, there was peace. LaShonda came by one evening, letting herself in through the security gauntlet like she'd been doing it her whole life. She found Sukmi in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner, tea light candles burning on the counter because the overhead light had burned out and nobody had replaced it yet. You hear about that domestic violence case over on Maple? LaShonda asked. Police finally got involved after the neighbors called in. Used luminol to prove the blood patterns even though he'd cleaned everything up. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw Ricky today. Sukmi stopped washing dishes. Where? Downtown Dallas. Near the trolley station. He was with some guys. They saw me see him, and Ricky just shook his head. Like don't tell. But girl, he looked scared. Really scared. Did you tell the police? What would I tell them? That I saw him standing on a street corner? That's not a crime. Sukmi dried her hands slowly. She'd been waiting for this. The other shoe. The next disaster. It had been too quiet, too peaceful. Nothing good lasted in her life. Nothing ever had. I need to find him, she said finally. You need to let him go, LaShonda countered. You've got 5 other kids who need you. Cameron's finally coming around. Marcus is doing great. Even Destiny's calmed down. You can't save Ricky if he doesn't want to be saved. He's my son. So are the others. It was true. It was all true. But motherhood wasn't about logic or fairness or rational distribution of worry. It was about the sick feeling in your stomach when one of your children was in danger, especially if, they'd put themselves there. Jaden wandered into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. It was past his bedtime, but the household schedule had been chaos for weeks. Mama, he said, and his voice was his own voice, not the wrong voice. I had a dream about Ricky. Yeah, baby? He was in a big building. Like a warehouse, but fancy. And there were people there, bad people, but also people who wanted to help. And he was crying because he didn't know which ones were which. Jaden paused, thinking hard. And there was a lady there. She had a necklace with a star. She kept saying Judy would have known. Judy would have helped. Over and over. Judy. Judy Garland. The trolleys. Dallas. Fort Worth. Garland, Texas. It all connected somehow, Sukhmi knew. Some pattern she couldn't quite see yet. Some web her son had gotten tangled in. Go back to bed, baby, she told Jaden, kissing his forehead. We'll figure it out in the morning. After he left, LaShonda raised an eyebrow. You believe in that stuff? The psychic stuff? I don't know what I believe anymore. But he's been right before. About the melons. About the guns. Maybe he's right about this too. So what are you going to do? Sukhmi looked around her kitchen, at the panic button under the table, at the security cameras in every corner, at the bars on the windows and the reinforced doors and all the ways she'd tried to keep danger out. But danger, she was learning, didn't just come from outside. Sometimes it grew inside your family, in the choices your children made, in the secrets they kept. I'm going to find my son, she said. And I'm going to bring him home, whether he likes it or not. LaShonda sighed. You're going to get yourself killed. Probably. But at least I'll die knowing I tried. Outside, somewhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth sprawl, Ricky was alive. Scared. In danger. And Sukhmi Kim, owner of Kim's Killer Meat Shack, mother of 6, survivor of bad marriages and worse decisions, was going to find him. But first, she had to figure out what the hell Judy Garland had to do with heroin trafficking in Garland, Texas. And that, she suspected, was going to be a very strange story indeed. Chapter 3, The Miracle of Meat and Other Delusions. The text came at 4:47 a.m., which was either very late or very early depending on whether you'd managed to sleep at all. Sukhmi hadn't. She'd been lying awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle and wondering if every creak was a drug dealer coming to kill them all. The text was from a number she didn't recognize. Turn on Channel 8 News. Now. She grabbed her phone, shuffled downstairs past the motion sensors, code 2-4-6-8, code 1-1-1-1, code 9-3-5-7, and turned on the TV that lived in the corner of the living room like an old relative everyone had forgotten about. Channel 8. Morning News. And there, on her screen, larger than life and twice as obnoxious, was City Councilman Gerald Fitzpatrick, standing in front of Kim's Killer Meat Shack, holding a sloppy Kim like it was the Holy Grail. And I'm not saying it's a miracle, Fitzpatrick was saying, his toupee slightly askew in the morning wind, but I had chronic hiccups for 17 years. 17 years. I tried everything: acupuncture, hypnosis, that thing where you drink water upside down. Nothing worked. Then I ate one of Sukhmi Kim's sandwiches, and within 24 hours, the hiccups were gone. Completely gone. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I know what I experienced, and the people of Fort Worth deserve to know about this establishment. Oh no, Sukhmi whispered to the empty room. Oh no, no, no. Her phone started ringing. Then it started ringing again. Then it didn't stop ringing. By the time she got to the shop at 6 a.m., 2 hours before opening, there were already 50 people in line. By 8 a.m., there were 200. By noon, the line wrapped around the block twice, and someone had set up a tent like they were waiting for concert tickets. "This is insane," LaShonda said, surveying the crowd from inside the shop. "This is actually insane." "I didn't cure his hiccups," Sukmi said desperately. "It's meat and gochujang mayo and cream cheese. It's not medicine. It's just food." But nobody cared what it was. They cared what they thought it was. The influencers arrived first, with their ring lights and their smartphone gimbals, filming themselves eating sloppy Kims and making exaggerated food orgasm faces for their followers. "OMG you guys, this is literally the best thing I've ever tasted. Link in bio for my detox tea that definitely isn't giving me diarrhea." Then came the health nuts, demanding to know exactly what was in the meat mix, whether it was organic, whether it was grass-fed, whether Sukmi had blessed it under a full moon while chanting Sanskrit mantras. "It's ground beef from Costco," Sukmi told them flatly. "That's it. That's the secret." "But what else?" they demanded, like she was hiding the fountain of youth in her walk-in freezer. The conspiracy theorists set up camp in the parking lot with their folding chairs and their hand-drawn signs. "Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about miracle meat and sloppy Kims equals government PSYOP?" One guy, wearing what appeared to be a colander on his head, kept asking if she was part of the kumquat cartel. "The what?" Sukmi asked. "The kumquat cartel," he shouted, like she was being deliberately obtuse. "Wake up, sheeple. It's all connected. The kumquats, the cryptocurrency market crash, the missing sardine tin shipment in Portugal. Follow the money." "I need you to buy something or leave," Sukmi said. "Typical shill behavior," he muttered, but bought 2 sloppy Kims and a water. The Mennonites showed up at 2 p.m. in a van that looked like it had been built before the invention of the radio. They filed out in their prayer caps and plain dresses, looking around at the chaos with expressions that suggested they'd expected exactly this. "Are you Sukmi Kim?" the eldest one asked. She was maybe 70, with a face like weathered barnwood and eyes that had seen things. "That's me. We've come from Pennsylvania. We heard about the miracle slurry." "It's not slurry. It's a sandwich." "All divine sustenance appears mundane to the uninitiated," the old woman said with perfect seriousness. "We would like to purchase 40 sandwiches to take back to our community. We have people suffering. Hiccups, yes, but also dropsy, grip, the vapors, persistent melancholy. I can't cure melancholy with a sandwich. The Lord works in mysterious ways. Also, we'll pay cash." Sukmi looked at the line, at the chaos, at her walk-in freezer that was already running dangerously low on meat. 40 sandwiches. That'll be $300. The Mennonites paid in crumpled bills that looked like they'd been hidden in a mattress since the Depression. They waited patiently while Destiny, Marcus, who'd taken the day off from his new job to help, and 2 other employees Sukmi had hastily hired that morning worked to fill the order. Through all of this, Jaden sat in the corner of the dining area, his eyes occasionally rolling back white while he muttered things like, "The alpaca sees all" and "Bobby Brown knows about the disco ball," before snapping back to normal and eating French fries with his fingers. "Should we be worried about that?" one of the new employees asked. "Only if he starts speaking fluent Latin," Sukmi said. "Then we call a priest." At 4 p.m., the health inspector arrived. Sukmi knew he was a health inspector because he was wearing a county ID badge and because he had the exact expression of someone who'd gotten into his profession specifically to make other people's lives difficult. He was maybe 45, with a mustache that looked like it had been drawn on with a Sharpie and the energy of a man who'd been turned down for a date in high school and never recovered. "Sukmi Kim?" he asked, pulling out an iPad. "Yes? I'm Inspector Dale Hooper with the Tarrant County Health Department. I'm here to conduct a routine inspection of your establishment." "Now? In the middle of this?" Sukmi gestured at the line, the crowd, the general chaos. Food safety doesn't wait for convenient times, Ms. Kim. He smiled, but it was the smile of a shark that had just spotted a wounded seal. Shall we begin in the kitchen? Inspector Dale Hooper found violations everywhere. The thermometer in the walk-in cooler was 0.5 degrees above optimal temperature. There was a small chip in one of the ceramic plates. Someone, probably Destiny, had written "Eat the Rich" on the walk-in door in Sharpie, which wasn't a health violation, but Hooper wrote it down anyway. The mop bucket had a crack in it. The back door didn't close completely due to the bullet damage from 3 weeks ago, which Hooper noted with particular interest. What happened here? He asked. Shootout, Sukmi said flatly. Made the news. You didn't hear? I don't follow local drama, Hooper said, making a note. I follow health codes. He spent 45 minutes in the kitchen, photographing everything, measuring everything, his face getting progressively more disappointed that he couldn't find anything truly damning. Finally, he approached Sukmi at the register. I'm going to need to see the recipe for your signature sandwich, he said. No. Excuse me? No. That's proprietary information. Ms. Kim, if you're using unapproved ingredients or additives that could pose a health risk. It's ground beef, gochujang mayo, cream cheese, and fried onions on a brioche bun. That's it. Nothing in there that needs FDA approval. Then you won't mind showing me the exact measurements and preparation method. I absolutely will mind. That's my livelihood. That's what makes this place special. Hooper's eyes narrowed. Ms. Kim, I could shut you down right now for the violations I've already found. 0.5 degrees on a thermometer and a chipped plate? Try it. I've got 12,000 Instagram followers now and a GoFundMe with $18,000. You shut me down, and it'll be on the news by dinner time. Local inspector crushes small business owners' dreams over minor technicalities. Great look for the county. They stared at each other. Hooper blinked first. I'll be back, he said. And next time, I'll find something real. Can't wait, Sukmi said sweetly. After he left, Lashonda appeared at her elbow. That man's going to be a problem. That man's going to try to be a problem. There's a difference. He had the look, Sukmi. The vendetta look. Like you personally wronged him somehow. I've never seen him before in my life. Doesn't matter. Some people just wake up and choose violence. Lashonda paused. Speaking of which, you hear anything from Ricky? No. But I've been asking around. Nobody knows anything, or they're not saying. I'm thinking about hiring a private investigator. With what money? The GoFundMe money. People gave it to us to recover from the shooting. Finding my son before he gets killed seems like a reasonable use of funds. Before Lashonda could respond, there was a commotion by the door. A woman in her 60s, wearing a tracksuit covered in rhinestones, was arguing with Destiny. And I'm telling you, I drove here all the way from Galveston because I heard this sandwich cured hiccups, and I've got tinnitus, and if it can cure hiccups, it can cure tinnitus. Ma'am, it's a sandwich. It can't cure medical conditions. That's what Big Pharma wants you to think. Sukmi intervened before Destiny could say something that would end up on social media. Ma'am, I'm very sorry you drove all the way from Galveston, but I have to be honest with you, this sandwich probably won't help your tinnitus. The councilman's hiccup stopping was likely a coincidence. Likely a coincidence? The woman looked like Sukmi had just told her Santa wasn't real. I drove 3 hours. I'll give you a free sandwich, Sukmi said tiredly. And a free water. But I can't promise it'll do anything except taste good and make you full. The woman huffed but accepted. She ate her sandwich in the corner, looking disappointed the entire time, and left without saying thank you. This is my life now, Sukmi said to no one in particular. This is what I'd become. By closing time, they'd served 412 sandwiches, which was roughly 300 more than a normal day. Sukmi's feet hurt. Her back hurt. Her soul hurt. Marcus had gone back to his apartment, Destiny had retreated to her room, and the new employees had clocked out looking shell-shocked. Lashonda helped clean up, her withered arms somehow managing to wipe down tables and stack chairs despite their limitations. They worked in comfortable silence until Lashonda said, "I saw Kayla today." Kayla. Child number 2, age 20. The one Sukmi thought about least because Kayla required the least amount of active parenting. Kayla had always been independent, self-sufficient, weirdly well-adjusted for someone raised in this family. Yeah? How is she? She got a job. That's great. Doing what? Lashonda paused in her wiping. You're going to want to sit down. Lashonda, I've been standing for 12 hours. I'm not sitting down unless someone's dead. She's working at Books and More. The bookstore on Sukmi stopped. Books and More. She knew that place. Everyone knew that place. It wasn't just a bookstore. It was an adult bookstore. With the arcade in the back. The arcade with the little booths and the coin slots and the things that happened in those booths that Sukmi did not want to think about, especially in relation to her daughter. No, Sukmi said. Yes. Absolutely not. She's 20, Sukmi, legal adult. Can make her own choices. Terrible choices. Choices that will haunt her. Choices involving, Sukmi lowered her voice even though they were alone, involving fluids and strangers and situations. She says it pays $15 an hour plus tips. Tips? Tips for what? She works the register, Sukmi. She checks people out. Literally checking them out at a cash register, not the other kind of checking out. Calm down. But Sukmi was already pulling out her phone, dialing Kayla's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. 3rd time, Kayla picked up. Hi, Mama. Books and More? Really? That's what we're doing now? It's a job. A good job. Better than retail. It is retail. Retail for perverts. Sex-positive individuals, Mama. And I just work the register. I don't do anything weird. I scan barcodes and take money. That's it. Kayla, do you know what happens in the back of that place? I'm 20 years old. I know what happens everywhere. And honestly, it's cleaner than most places. They have standards. The guy who owns it is super nice. He gives us health insurance. Oh, well, as long as there's health insurance for your employment at the pornography emporium. I'm going to hang up now, Mama. I love you. Come visit me at work sometime. We have a really nice selection of massage oils. She hung up. Sukmi stood there, phone in hand, having an out-of-body experience. My daughter works at a porn shop. Your daughter has a job with benefits in this economy, Lashonda corrected. Count your blessings. I'm not counting shit. But she was too tired to be properly angry, and besides, there were more pressing problems. Like finding Ricky. Like dealing with Inspector Hooper's obvious vendetta. Like figuring out what to do with the crowd that would undoubtedly return tomorrow, all of them hoping for miracles that ground beef and cream cheese couldn't provide. She locked up the shop, all 3 locks, all 3 alarm codes, and drove home in her 2012 Honda Civic that smelled like old French fries and broken dreams. The house was quiet when she got there. Cameron's door was closed but unlocked now, which was progress. Jaden was asleep on the couch, having fallen asleep watching a nature documentary about alpacas. Sukmi stood there watching him sleep, the strange child with his stranger gifts. The alpaca sees all, he'd said earlier. What did that even mean? She went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine that tasted like it cost $4.99 because it did, and sat at her table with the panic button underneath. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at the Nessie's Nautical Bar tomorrow night. 8 p.m. Come alone. R. Ricky. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. He was alive. He was reaching out. He wanted to meet. And he wanted her to come alone to a bar she'd never heard of, which sounded exactly like the beginning of a Dateline episode. She texted back, "I'll be there." Then she Googled Nessie's Nautical Bar. It was in Dallas, near the old warehouse district, the kind of place that probably hadn't been updated since 1987 and smelled like cigarettes even though smoking had been banned indoors for decades. The reviews were a mix of great dive bar atmosphere and "I saw a rat the size of a cat" and "someone tried to sell me cryptocurrency in the bathroom." Perfect. The next day brought more chaos. The line was even longer. Someone had set up a news van. A crew from a wellness podcast was interviewing people in line about their ailments and their hopes for miracle meat. The conspiracy theorist with the colander hat was back, now with pamphlets about the kumquat cartel that he was handing out to anyone who'd take them. The Mennonites returned at noon with a tour bus full of more Mennonites, all wanting miracle slurry, all paying in cash that looked like it had been buried during the Civil War. And at 2 p.m., Inspector Dale Hooper returned. This time he had backup, 2 other inspectors, both of them looking apologetic and uncomfortable. "Surprise inspection," Hooper announced with barely concealed glee. "My colleagues and I will be conducting a thorough review of your establishment, including food storage, preparation methods, and," he paused dramatically, "investigating claims that you may be using unapproved additives or substances that could constitute a health risk." "You mean the hiccup cure thing," Sukhmi said flatly. "You're here because of the hiccup cure thing." "I'm here because it's my job to ensure public safety." The other 2 inspectors looked at each other. One of them, a younger guy with kind eyes, mouthed sorry at Sukhmi when Hooper wasn't looking. They spent 3 hours taking apart her kitchen. They swabbed surfaces, they tested temperatures, they took samples of everything: the meat, the mayo, the cream cheese, the onions, the buns. Hooper even tried to take a sample of the secret seasoning, which was literally just salt, pepper, and garlic powder mixed together in ratios Sukhmi had figured out through trial and error. "This is harassment," Sukhmi said after hour 2. "This is due diligence," Hooper countered. Finally, they finished. Hooper approached with his iPad and a smile that could curdle milk. "We'll be sending these samples to the county lab for analysis," he said. "If they find anything at all, that violates health codes, I'll be back with a closure order." "Cool. Can't wait. Please leave now." After they left, one of the new employees, a college kid named Brandon who was working his way through community college, approached Sukhmi hesitantly. Ms. Kim? I think I know why that guy hates you." "I've never met him before." "No, but I looked him up on Facebook." "His ex-wife?" "She left him for a Korean guy. Like, a really good-looking Korean guy who owns a chain of successful restaurants. There are pictures of them in Paris, in front of the Eiffel Tower, looking super happy. And Inspector Hooper looks not happy in his profile picture. He looks like a man whose wife left him for someone who makes better food and has better hair." Sukhmi stared at Brandon. "So he's taking it out on me because I'm half Korean and own a food establishment?" "I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but, yeah, probably." "Men are garbage," Lashonda said from behind the counter. "Most men are garbage," Sukhmi amended. "Todd's been pretty decent lately. He's been helping Cameron. They're making real progress with the accent thing. One decent man doesn't disprove the general thesis." At 6 p.m., Sukhmi closed up early. She told the remaining people in line that they were out of meat, which was almost true. She had enough for maybe 20 more sandwiches, but she needed to prep for tomorrow, and she needed to get ready to meet Ricky. She went home, showered, changed into clothes that weren't covered in meat grease and existential despair, and stood in front of her closet trying to figure out what one wore to potentially get murdered by drug dealers at a nautical-themed dive bar. Destiny appeared in her doorway. "You going somewhere?" "Meeting your brother." "Which one? The psychic, the voice-changing one, the successful one, the porn shop one, or the drug-dealing one?" "The last one." "Want me to come?" He said come alone. "That's how people get killed, Mama. That's literally how every murder documentary starts." "I'll be fine. I'm taking my pepper spray." "Pepper spray doesn't stop bullets." "Then I guess I better hope they're not shooting." Sukmi grabbed her purse, checked for her pepper spray, her phone, her emergency whistle that she'd bought on Amazon and never used. "If I'm not back by midnight, call Todd." "Why Todd?" "Because he has guns and a security team, and your other fathers are useless." She paused. "Actually, call Todd anyway. Tell him where I'm going. Just in case." She kissed Destiny's forehead and headed out into the warm Texas evening, past all the security measures, all the alarms and bars and cameras that were supposed to keep danger out but couldn't do anything about the danger she was voluntarily driving toward. Nessie's nautical bar looked exactly like its Yelp reviews suggested: questionable, vaguely damp, and possibly haunted by the ghosts of bad decisions past. The outside was decorated with fishing nets, plastic lobsters, and a faded mural of what might have been the Loch Ness Monster but looked more like a green blob having an identity crisis. A neon sign flickered open in letters that had probably been bright sometime during the Reagan administration. Inside was somehow worse and better simultaneously. The walls were covered in maritime nonsense, life preservers, ship wheels, a taxidermied marlin that looked like it had been through some things. In the corner, inexplicably, was a disco ball shaped like a globe, slowly rotating and casting strange shadows. Someone had left an inflatable flamingo on one of the bar stools, like they'd started to decorate for a pool party and given up. It was 7:55 p.m. Sukmi ordered a beer, domestic, cheap, the kind that tasted like college regrets, and waited. Ricky walked in at 8:03 p.m. He looked terrible. Thinner than she remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy that made him look like he was constantly 1 second from bolting. He was 22 but looked 40. He scanned the bar, spotted Sukmi, and made his way over. "Mama," he said, sliding into the booth across from her. "Baby," she responded, because no matter how old they got, no matter what they did, they were still her babies. They sat in silence for a moment. On the jukebox in the corner, Bobby Brown's My Prerogative started playing, which felt almost cosmically appropriate for this moment. "You look like shit," Sukmi said finally. "I feel like shit." "You want to tell me what the hell you're into?" "Because men with machine guns came to my sandwich shop, Ricky. They held your sister at gunpoint. They're looking for you, and when they can't find you, they're going to come after us again." Ricky's hands shook as he picked up the beer she'd ordered for him. "It started as just a delivery job. That's all. Some guy I knew from high school said he'd pay me $500 to drive a package from Garland to Dallas. I didn't ask what was in it. I didn't want to know. But you knew anyway." "Yeah. I knew. But $500, Mama. Do you know how long it takes to make $500 working at Target?" "So you became a drug mule." "I became a delivery driver with poor judgment." He took a long drink. "It was supposed to be one time. But then it was 2 times, then 5, then 20. And the money was so good, and I was saving up, planning to get out, maybe go to school, do something real with my life." "What happened?" "I got greedy. Or stupid. Probably both." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "There was this shipment, those watermelons you saw, they weren't even the real thing. They were decoys. The real shipment was cryptocurrency wallets loaded with Bitcoin. $20 million worth, all tied to some cartel operation in Mexico. I was supposed to deliver them to a guy in Dallas, but instead. He paused. Instead, I copied the wallet keys and hid them. Sukmi felt her stomach drop. You stole $20 million from a drug cartel. I didn't steal it. I just borrowed the access codes. I was going to give them back, I swear, but then I thought about what we could do with that money. Real money. You could retire, Mama. Cameron could get real help. Marcus could finish school without working 3 jobs. Destiny could watch her brother get murdered for being a goddamn idiot, Sukmi snapped. Jesus Christ, Ricky. $20 million? From people with machine guns? I know, okay? I fucked up. But I can fix it. I've been working with some people. What people? Better people. FBI, actually. They want the cartel guys, and I want to not die. So we made a deal. I give them information, I testify, and I go into witness protection. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Witness protection. Which meant he'd disappear. New identity, new life, no contact with family. She'd never see him again. When? Sukmi asked quietly. Soon. Maybe a week. They're building the case. Once they have enough evidence, they'll move on the cartel, and I'll disappear. He reached across the table, took her hand. But before I go, I wanted to see you. To tell you I'm sorry. For all of it. For being the fuck-up son. For putting you all in danger. For. Stop, Sukmi said, tears threatening. Just stop. You're not a fuck-up. You made bad choices. We all make bad choices. I made 6 of them, and they all call me Mama. Ricky laughed despite himself. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. Even when you're stealing millions from drug cartels like an idiot. They talked for another hour. Not about the drugs or the money or the danger, but about normal things. About Cameron's progress with his accent. About Marcus's new job. About how Kayla was working at a porn shop and Sukmi was trying to be okay with it. About Jaden's psychic abilities and whether they should be concerned or just roll with it. Oh, Ricky said, speaking of Jaden's visions, has he mentioned anything about an alpaca? Sukmi froze. Yeah. Why? Because one of the FBI guys has this contact, some kind of, I don't know, informant or something. They call him the psychic alpaca. He's supposedly this guy who can predict cartel movements, knows things he shouldn't know. The FBI thinks he might be connected to your Jaden somehow. Like, genetically or spiritually or some woo-woo shit I don't understand. A psychic alpaca. I know how it sounds. My life has become a badly written reality show. Welcome to the Kim family experience. At 10 p.m., Ricky said he had to go. He had a meeting with his FBI handlers. He hugged Sukmi tight, and she memorized everything about the moment, the smell of his cologne, the way his heart beat fast against her chest, the feeling of her son in her arms, one of the last times she might ever hold him. Be safe, she whispered. You too, Mama. And listen, the inspections at your shop? That's not random. Someone's trying to shut you down. I don't know who or why, but the guys I was working with mentioned something about it. Said someone paid good money to make your life difficult. Inspector Hooper. Maybe. Or maybe someone higher up. Just, be careful, okay? After he left, Sukmi sat in the booth for a long time, nursing her warm beer, listening to Bobby Brown loop on the jukebox, staring at the inflatable flamingo and wondering how her life had become this strange, this chaotic, this utterly ridiculous. Her phone buzzed. A text from Destiny. Todd says to tell you he's parked outside the bar and has been this whole time. He says you're welcome. Despite everything, Sukmi smiled. Maybe not all men were garbage. Maybe some of them were just ex-husbands with security training and boundary issues and a weird persistent kindness that they didn't know how to express directly. She paid her tab, walked outside, and found Todd's car parked across the street. He waved. She waved back. And together, separately but somehow together, they drove home through the Dallas night, past the neon and the chaos and all the broken beautiful things that made up this life. The next morning, the health department called. Sukmi answered on the third ring, already bracing for bad news. Ms. Kim? This is Director Patricia Chen from the Tarrant County Health Department. I'm calling about the samples Inspector Hooper submitted from your establishment. Let me guess. He found trace amounts of hope and classified it as a controlled substance. There was a pause, then a small laugh. Actually, Ms. Kim, that's why I'm calling. Inspector Hooper has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his conduct. I'm sorry, what? His samples came back completely clean. Nothing even remotely questionable. But when we reviewed the case file and his previous inspections, we noticed a pattern. He's been targeting establishments owned by Asian Americans, specifically Korean Americans, and manufacturing violations or exaggerating minor issues. Your complaint, combined with others we've received, has triggered an internal review. Sukmi sat down slowly. So I'm not in trouble? You were never in trouble, Ms. Kim. Your establishment meets or exceeds all health codes. Inspector Hooper was pursuing a personal vendetta, and that's completely unacceptable. On behalf of the department, I apologize. After she hung up, Sukmi sat in her kitchen and laughed. Actually laughed. A real laugh, not the bitter kind or the desperate kind, but the kind that came from somewhere genuine and surprised. One problem solved. Only about 47 more to go. LaShonda came over that afternoon, letting herself in through all the security theater, and found Sukmi making her famous sloppy Kim mix in industrial quantities. You're smiling, LaShonda observed. That's concerning. Are you having a breakdown? The opposite. I think things might actually be okay. For now. Maybe. Ricky? Alive. Talking to the FBI. Going into witness protection soon. Cameron? Getting better. Talking more. His accent's less Eastern European, more just generically neutral American. Marcus? Thriving. His job's going great. His STDs cleared up. River's apparently wonderful. Kayla? Working at a porn shop, but with benefits, so I'm choosing my battles. Destiny? Traumatized but resilient. Therapy's helping. Jaden? Still psychic. Apparently connected to some FBI informant called the Psychic Alpaca. I don't have the energy to unpack that. LaShonda nodded, processing all of this. Then, and you? Sukmi thought about it. Her sandwich shop was more popular than ever, even if it was for stupid reasons. Her son was alive and trying to make things right. Her other kids were figuring out their lives in their own messy ways. She had an ex-husband who drove around protecting her from a distance. She had a best friend who broke into her fortress house just to check on her. I'm tired, Sukmi said finally. But I'm okay. Which is more than I usually am. I'll take it. They worked together in comfortable silence, making sandwiches for the crowd that would inevitably arrive tomorrow, preparing for whatever fresh chaos the universe decided to throw at them next. Because this was life. This was family. This was running a small sandwich shop in a strip mall between a payday loan place and a vape store, trying to make enough money to survive while also raising 6 kids by 5 different fathers while also dealing with drug cartels and health inspectors and the persistent belief that ground beef and cream cheese could cure chronic hiccups. It was ridiculous. It was exhausting. It was occasionally wonderful. Sukmi thought as she mixed her secret seasoning that wasn't even secret, exactly what she'd signed up for when she decided to keep that first pregnancy 22 years ago. Maybe not specifically the cartel stuff or the psychic alpaca stuff, but the general chaos of loving people who made terrible decisions while also making terrible decisions yourself and somehow, miraculously, surviving it all. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Sukmi Kim? The voice was female, older, with an accent that might have been Scottish. This is Moira Campbell from the BBC. We're doing a documentary about American food phenomena, and we'd love to feature your establishment. We're calling it Miracle Meat, the sandwich that cured America. Would you be interested in participating? Sukmi looked at Lashonda. Lashonda raised an eyebrow that said absolutely not, and this is going to be a disaster, but Alu, we need the money, so you're probably going to say yes. How much does it pay? Sukmi asked. We'd offer $5,000 for filming rights and your participation in interviews. $5,000. That was the down payment on a new industrial freezer. That was Cameron's therapy for 6 months. That was Marcus's student loans for a semester. That was Destiny's braces she desperately needed but Sukmi couldn't afford. When would you need to film? We're thinking next month. We'd need about 3 days of access to your establishment and your family. My family's off limits, Sukmi said immediately. You can film the shop. You can interview me. But my kids stay out of it. There was a pause. We were hoping to capture the full story. The single mother, the 6 children, the American dream. The American dream doesn't include my children's faces on BBC without their consent. Shop and me, or no deal. Another pause. Let me consult with my producer and call you back. She hung up. Lashonda was grinning. What? Sukmi asked. You're getting good at this. Setting boundaries. Protecting your people. Demanding respect. I'm 41 years old. It's about damn time. The BBC called back 20 minutes later and agreed to her terms. Filming would start in 3 weeks. Sukmi would need to sign releases, provide insurance information, and prepare for what Moira Campbell called a deep dive into your fascinating establishment and the cultural phenomenon you've created. I made a sandwich, Sukmi told Lashonda after hanging up. I made a sandwich with cream cheese in it because I was pregnant and craving weird shit. Now the BBC wants to make a documentary about it. White people love discovering things that other people have known about forever and acting like they invented it, Lashonda said sagely. Just smile, take their money, and don't let them pronounce gochujang. That night, after closing up the shop routine now, almost muscle memory, 3 codes, and 6 locks and 2 alarm systems, Sukmi drove home past the construction on Highway 121, past the new Target and the old abandoned Toys R Us that had been empty since 2018, past all the landmarks of her life in this corner of Texas that she'd never meant to stay in but somehow never left. Cameron was in the living room when she got home, watching TV with Todd. They were watching something about deep-sea creatures, and Cameron was narrating in his regular voice, still a little uncertain, still finding its way back to him, but there. Present. His. And that's a blobfish, Cameron was saying. They look weird because of the pressure change when they're brought to the surface. In their natural habitat, they actually look pretty normal. Like people, Todd said. Take them out of their environment and they fall apart. Exactly. Sukmi stood in the doorway, watching this moment between her son and her ex-husband, this quiet healing happening in her living room with the security cameras recording it all. She thought about Ricky, who'd be gone soon into a life she couldn't follow. She thought about Marcus with his new job and his pronouns and his partner named River. She thought about Kayla ringing up dildos and lubricated books and more, making $15 an hour plus tips. She thought about Destiny, who'd had a gun to her head and survived and was somehow still getting up every day. She thought about Jaden and his visions and the mysterious psychic alpaca and all the things she didn't understand but had to accept. This was her family. Weird and broken and miraculous and completely fucking absurd. Mama? Jaden appeared at the top of the stairs, rubbing his eyes. I had another vision. Of course you did, baby. Come tell me about it. He came down and climbed into her lap, even though he was 9 and getting too big for lap sitting. The alpaca says the sardine tin is important. He says to tell Ricky that the answer is in the sardine tin, and when the time comes, he'll understand. A sardine tin. A specific sardine tin. With a lighthouse on it. The alpaca was very clear about the lighthouse. Okay, Sukmi said, because what else could she say? I'll tell Ricky about the sardine tin with the lighthouse. Also, Jaden continued, he says you're going to be on TV, and it's going to be embarrassing but profitable, and that you should negotiate for more money because they're BBC and they have royal funding or something. The alpaca knows about BBC funding? The alpaca knows everything, Mama. That's why he's psychic. Cameron and Todd had turned from the TV to watch this conversation. Todd looked confused. Cameron looked accepting, like psychic alpacas were just part of the Kim family experience now. Who's hungry? Sukmi asked, because feeding people was the one thing she knew how to do reliably. I'll make breakfast for dinner. They all ended up in the kitchen. Cameron, Todd, Jaden, and Sukmi. Destiny emerged from her room, drawn by the smell of bacon. They sat around the table with the panic button underneath, eating scrambled eggs and toast and bacon, talking about normal things and weird things and everything in between. At one point, Sukmi's phone buzzed. A text from Kayla, Mama, I know you're weird about my job, but I got Employee of the Month. They're giving me a $500 bonus and a trophy. The trophy is shaped like a disco ball. I love it. I'm putting it on my mantle. I'm proud of myself even if you're not. Sukmi texted back immediately, I'm proud of you too, baby. Even if I don't understand the trophy. 3 dots appeared, then, thanks, Mama. That means a lot. Love you. Love you too. She looked around her kitchen at her weird little family, the son who was finding his voice again, the son with visions of psychic alpacas, the daughter who was processing trauma by making dark jokes, the ex-husband who stuck around when he didn't have to. She thought about the other kids, Ricky about to disappear forever, Marcus building a real life, Kayla finding pride in unexpected places. This was it. This was what she'd built. Not perfect, not even close, but real. Surviving. Sometimes even thriving. Mama? Jaden asked, maple syrup on his chin. The alpaca wants to know if we can get a real alpaca. No. He says we should consider it. He says alpacas are very therapeutic. We're not getting an alpaca, Jaden. What about a small alpaca? No alpacas. No llamas. No camels. No creatures that spit. You're no fun. I'm a single mother of 6 kids running a sandwich shop that accidentally became famous because a city councilman's hiccup stopped. Fun is not in my job description. Todd laughed. It was a real laugh, the kind she remembered from Vegas, from those 72 hours when everything had seemed possible before reality set in. What? She asked. Nothing. Just, this is nice. This. He gestured around the table. Family dinner. Even if the family is unconventional and there's a panic button under the table and half the conversation is about psychic alpacas. Especially because of those things, Cameron added quietly. It was one of the longest sentences he'd volunteered in months. They finished dinner. Todd helped clean up, then said his goodbyes. He had an early security job in the morning, something about protecting a celebrity who was filming in Dallas. As he left, he hugged Sukmi just briefly, just a moment, and said, "You're doing good, Sukmi. With all of it. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you are." After he left, after the kids went to their various rooms to do their various teenage things, Sukmi sat alone in her kitchen and let herself feel it. The exhaustion, yes, but also something else. Something that might have been satisfaction or accomplishment, or just the knowledge that she'd survived another day and would probably survive the next one too. Her phone buzzed one more time. "Ricky, Mama, I need you to do something weird. There's a sardine tin in the back of my old closet. It has a lighthouse on it. Inside are USB drives with all the cryptocurrency wallet information. Give them to the FBI contact I'm sending you. It'll help their case and keep you all safe. And Mama? Thank you. For everything. For not giving up on me even when you should have." Sukmi stared at the message. The sardine tin. The fucking sardine tin that Jaden's psychic alpaca had mentioned. She texted back, "I'll find it. I love you. Be safe." Then she went upstairs to Ricky's old room, the room he'd left when he moved out at 19, the room she'd kept mostly intact like a shrine to better times. In the closet, behind old shoes and forgotten hoodies, she found it, a vintage sardine tin with a lighthouse on the front, Portuguese writing she couldn't read, and inside, 3 USB drives wrapped in plastic. $20 million in cryptocurrency. The key to taking down a cartel. The thing that would save her son and maybe, if she was lucky, keep the rest of her family safe. She held the tin in her hands and laughed. Because of course. Of course it was in a sardine tin. Of course her psychic 9-year-old knew about it before she did. Of course her life had become this strange. Tomorrow she'd call the FBI contact. Tomorrow she'd deal with the BBC documentary people. Tomorrow she'd make another 400 sandwiches for people who thought ground beef could cure their ailments. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to keep surviving, keep pushing forward, keep being the imperfect mother to her imperfect children in their imperfect life. But tonight, she was just going to sit on the floor of her son's old room, holding a sardine tin full of digital currency, and marvel at the absolute absurdity of it all. "The alpaca sees all," she whispered to the empty room, and somewhere in the universe, she was pretty sure something, or someone, was laughing with her. Chapter 6, Digital Vigilante Justice and Other Family Disasters. The hack happened during the Hearts for Hope telethon, which was being broadcast live from a studio in Irving at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday when most people were trying to forget their day jobs existed. The host was Brett Chandler, former star of Malibu Rescue Squad, a syndicated show from the mid-90s where beautiful people saved other beautiful people from drowning while wearing swimsuits that violated several laws of physics. Brett was 53 now, bloated from what tabloids politely called lifestyle choices and what everyone else called cocaine and bad decisions. He'd been reduced to hosting charity telethons and making appearances at car dealerships. And remember, every dollar you donate goes directly to helping children with. The screen flickered. Then went black. Then came back with something different. A spreadsheet. Bank statements. Emails. All floating across the screen in a design that was somehow both professional and absolutely devastating. And in the corner, in simple white text, Brett Chandler has embezzled $847,000 from Hearts for Hope over 3 years. Here's the proof. You're welcome. M. Marcus? No, Marcus was barely competent with Excel, let alone high-level hacking. Sukmi was watching at home, halfway through a microwave burrito that tasted like disappointment, when her phone started blowing up. LaShonda, girl. Turn on channel 8. Todd, is that your kid? That's your kid, isn't it? Marcus, actual Marcus, her son. Mama, I swear that's not me. I don't know how to hack anything. I can barely work the office printer. And then, from Destiny's phone, which was sitting on the kitchen counter, Mama, I need you to not be mad. Sukmi walked to Destiny's room. The door was closed. She knocked. Baby? You want to explain what just happened on live television? The door opened. Destiny stood there looking defiant and terrified simultaneously, her laptop open behind her, code still running across the screen. His real name is Brett Chandler Schmidt, Destiny said without preamble, but he spells it like BRETCHNDLR-SCHMIDT, which is already a red flag because people who spell their names weird when they could just spell them normal are hiding something. And he was stealing money from sick kids, mama. Sick kids. Someone had to do something. So you hacked a live television broadcast. I exposed a criminal. By committing a crime. A crime that helps people. They stared at each other. Sukmi tried to find the parental outrage, the appropriate horror at her daughter becoming a hacktivist vigilante. But all she could think about was Cameron and his criminal empire, Ricky and his drug running, and how at least Destiny's crime was actually trying to help people. How much trouble are you in? Sukmi asked quietly. I don't know. I routed everything through 7 different VPNs and a network in Estonia. They'd have to trace through multiple international servers, and by the time they do that, I'll have covered my tracks better. Probably. I'm like 75% sure I'm safe. 75%. Maybe 80. Sukmi sat down on Destiny's bed, which was covered in banned posters and feminist literature and a surprising amount of technical manuals about network security. You know this is going to blow up, right? This is going to be everywhere. People are going to figure out it was you. Let them. I'm not ashamed. He was stealing from charity. From children's charity. That's cartoon villain behavior. And Sukmi realized, with a mixture of pride and terror, that her daughter had principles. Actual principles. The kind you don't compromise on, even when compromising would be safer. Okay, Sukmi said. Okay. We're calling Philip Chen. The lawyer. Right now. Before the police show up. You're not mad? I'm furious. I'm also proud. I'm also terrified. I'm feeling about 17 things at once and none of them are simple. Now get your laptop, screenshot everything you did, and prepare to explain it to a lawyer who's going to tell us exactly how screwed you are. By morning, Destiny was a folk hero to half the internet and a domestic terrorist to the other half. Hashtag Destiny Kim was trending on Twitter. Reddit had multiple threads analyzing her hack. TikTok was full of videos either praising her courage or condemning her lawlessness. The news was calling her everything from digital vigilante to teenage anarchist to the hero we need. Brett Chandler had been arrested. The embezzlement was real, documented, undeniable. But that didn't change the fact that Destiny had committed multiple felonies to expose it. Philip Chen, the lawyer, was less optimistic than he'd been about Cameron. She's got a better moral case, he said over the phone. Whistleblower status, public interest, all of that. But she's also hacked a live television broadcast, accessed private financial records without authorization, and exposed information that, while accurate, was obtained illegally. If they want to prosecute, they can. If they want to make her a symbol, they can. What do I do? Sukmi asked. Keep her quiet. Don't let her do any interviews. Don't let her post anything else online. And pray that the public opinion stays on her side, because that's her best defense right now. Destiny lasted approximately 6 hours for doing an interview with a YouTuber who had 3 million subscribers. Sukmi watched it from the sandwich shop, her blood pressure rising with every word. I'm not sorry, Destiny was saying to the camera. I'd do it again. People with power and money think they can steal from the vulnerable and get away with it. But there are consequences. There should always be consequences. Brave or stupid, the YouTuber asked. Both. Definitely both. The interview had 800,000 views in 2 hours. And then the phone call came. Ms. Kim? This is Rachel Winters from Dallas Today. We'd love to have you on the show tomorrow to discuss your daughter's actions, your parenting philosophy, and how you've managed to raise such interesting children. Interesting was doing a lot of work in that sentence. I don't think that's a good idea, Sukmi started. We're offering $5,000 for your appearance. Sukmi thought about Cameron's legal fees. About Destiny's probable legal fees. About Marcus's medical bills for the scabies treatment. About the mortgage payment that was coming due. What time should I be there? Dallas Today filmed in a studio off Central Expressway, near North Park Mall, in a building that looked like it had been modern in 1987 and hadn't updated since. Sukmi arrived at 9 a.m., was immediately hustled into makeup, and found herself sitting in the green room with two other guests, a child psychologist named Dr. Sandra Morrison who had opinions about modern parenting failures, and a vegan activist named Jeremy something who apparently had thoughts about everything and wouldn't stop sharing them. Your daughter is a symptom of a society that glorifies rule-breaking, Dr. Morrison said, not even introducing herself first. Children need structure, boundaries, consequences. Not praise for criminal behavior. My daughter exposed embezzlement from a children's charity, Sukmi said flatly. I think that deserves some praise. The ends don't justify the means. Sometimes they do, actually. Jeremy the vegan activist leaned forward. I think what we're all missing here is the systemic oppression that leads to these acts of rebellion. If we restructured society around compassion, true compassion, which includes not eating animals or their byproducts, then perhaps children like Destiny wouldn't feel compelled to act out. Sukmi stared at him. My daughter hacked a television broadcast. What does that have to do with veganism? Everything is connected. The consumption of animal products, the exploitation of resources, the moral decay that allows embezzlement to flourish, it's all part of the same capitalist meat-industrial complex. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and I once had a kid tell me that the alphabet should be rearranged alphabetically. They were called to the set. The host, a woman named Patricia Chen, no relation to Philip Chen the lawyer or Marcus Chen the former Hawaiian shirt, hopefully, smiled with too many teeth and asked questions designed to make Sukmi look like either an enabler or a tyrant, depending on how she answered. Do you think you failed as a parent? Patricia asked. I think I did my best with what I had, Sukmi said carefully. 6 kids, 5 different fathers, running a small business. Nobody gives you a manual for that. But your children have been involved in various. Patricia consulted her notes, incidents. Drug trafficking, criminal coordination, and now this hacking situation. At what point do you take responsibility? I take responsibility every day. But my kids are their own people. They make their own choices. I can guide them, support them, love them, but I can't control them. Nobody can control another person, not really. Dr. Morrison jumped in. That's exactly the problem. Modern parents are too permissive. They're friends instead of authority figures. Children need firm boundaries. My kids had boundaries, Sukmi shot back. They just also had brains and decided to use them in ways I didn't anticipate. That's called being human. Jeremy the vegan, if you'd raised them on a plant-based diet, their moral compass would be more aligned with. My kids' diet has nothing to do with their decision-making. Everything we consume affects our consciousness. Meat eating creates aggression. Dairy clouds judgment. If we all just... I own a sandwich shop. A meat sandwich shop. I'm not going to sit here and listen to you blame my kids' choices on hamburgers. The interview continued for another 15 minutes, getting more contentious with each question. When they finally cut to commercial, Sukmi stood up to leave. Jeremy grabbed her arm. You're part of the problem. People like you, profiting off animal suffering, raising children to think rules don't matter. Get your hand off me. Contributing to climate change with every sandwich you sell. I said get your hand off me. And refusing to see how your choices affect the collective consciousness. Sukmi punched him. Not hard. Just hard enough to make a point. A quick jab to the shoulder that was more about establishing boundaries than causing injury. Jeremy stumbled backward, shocked. You hit me. She hit me. You grabbed me. That's assault. I defended myself. That's legal. I barely touched you. You put your hands on me without consent after I told you to stop. That's the definition of assault, you pretentious kumquat. Security appeared. Patricia Chen looked delighted. This was going to be great for ratings. Dr. Morrison was filming on her phone. And Sukmi realized, with perfect clarity, that her life had become a reality show she never auditioned for. They didn't press charges. Jeremy didn't want the publicity of admitting he'd been punched by a middle-aged Korean sandwich shop owner. Sukmi signed a waiver promising not to sue for how the incident was portrayed, collected her $5,000, and left. Her phone was exploding with texts. Lashonda, did you just punch a vegan on live television? Todd, that wasn't live, it was during commercial break, but someone posted it on Twitter and it's already at 2 million views. Marcus, mama you're a meme. Like an actual meme. #SlopMyJoe is trending. Destiny, I've never been more proud of you in my entire life. Cameron, the police want to talk to Destiny tomorrow. Philip says we need to be there at 10 a.m. with all documentation. And one from Kayla, Mama, I need to talk to you. Something happened at work. Something really bad. Can you come over? Please? Sukmi's stomach dropped. She called Kayla immediately. Baby, what's wrong? I can't talk about it on the phone. Just come over. Please. I'm at my apartment. Kayla lived in a studio near Oak Lawn, in one of those buildings that looked nice from the outside but inside smelled like old carpet and broken dreams. Sukmi made the drive from the studio in 20 minutes, probably breaking several traffic laws but not caring. Kayla opened the door looking wrecked. Eyes red, makeup smeared, still wearing her books and more polo shirt that had definitely seen better days. What happened? Sukmi asked, immediately going into mother mode. I had to clean the arcade area tonight. The back rooms. Where the? Kayla gestured vaguely, where the things happen. Okay? And I was mopping. Just mopping, trying not to think about what I was mopping up, when I heard voices from one of the booths. And I should have just left it, should have come back later, but I knocked because we're supposed to check that no one's been in there more than 30 minutes, and the door opened and she stopped. Started crying. Sukmi held her, let her cry it out, waited. It was my dad, Kayla finally said. Derek. My dad who I haven't seen since I was 2. My dad who left and never called and never wrote and never gave a shit about me. He was in there. With another man. They were. Oh, baby. And that's not even the worst part, Mama. The worst part is the other guy. I saw his arm. He had this tattoo. This really specific tattoo of a koi fish with Hindu symbols around it. And I know that tattoo, Mama. I've seen it before in your photos. In the box in your closet where you keep pictures of all our dads. Sukmi felt the world tilt slightly. Which tattoo? Whose arm? Jason. Jason Reeves. Marcus's dad. Your 4th baby daddy. They were together, Mama. Derek and Jason. In the arcade booth at Books and More. And when they saw me, Derek just looked at me and said Kayla like he was surprised I existed. Like he'd forgotten he had a daughter. And then they left. Just grabbed their stuff and left, and I stood there with a mop trying to understand how my dad and my half-brother's dad ended up in a porn arcade booth together. Sukmi sat down heavily on Kayla's futon that definitely came from Craigslist. Her brain was trying to process this information and failing spectacularly. Derek. Gay. She'd known that, or suspected it, after Todd's sighting. But Jason. Marcus's father. The one who'd seemed so aggressively heterosexual, with his truck and his guns and his opinions about football. The one who'd gotten her pregnant and then disappeared to find himself in New Mexico. Both of them. Together. At Books and More. How long do you think? Kayla started, then stopped. Do you think they were together back then? When they were with you? Do you think they were using you as a cover or something? I don't know, baby. I really don't know. Because if they were, that's so fucked up, Mama. That's so incredibly fucked up. Using women as beards, making babies they had no intention of raising, just to hide who they really were. Sukmi thought about it. About Derek, who'd always been gentle, almost tentative in bed. About Jason, who'd been overcompensating in every possible way. About the signs she might have missed because she was young and stupid and not looking for them. Even if they were, Sukmi said slowly, even if they were together or figuring themselves out or whatever, that doesn't excuse abandoning their children. You can be gay and still be a father. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. But they weren't. They're not. Derek hasn't called me in 18 years. Jason sends Marcus a card on his birthday with $50 in it and thinks that counts as parenting. I know. And now I have to see them. Every time I go to work. Every time I clean that fucking arcade. I have to wonder if they're going to come back. If I'm going to have to see my dad with his boyfriend or whatever, doing things I really don't want to think about. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, Oaklawn was alive with its usual Tuesday night energy, the bars, the restaurants, the people living their authentic lives in a neighborhood that let them. Somewhere out there, Derek and Jason were probably having their own crisis, realizing they'd been caught by the daughter one of them had abandoned. What do I do, Mama? Kayla asked quietly. I don't know, baby. I really don't know. Sukmi's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, we need to talk. About what Kayla saw. About a lot of things. This is Derek. Then another, Sukmi, it's Jason. We should meet. Clear the air. Explain some things. And then, most bizarrely, a text from both numbers to a new group chat, can we meet tomorrow? All of us? We owe you both an explanation. D and J. Sukmi showed Kayla the messages. Kayla laughed, a broken sound that might have been crying if you looked at it from a different angle. An explanation. They want to give us an explanation. 18 years later, they want to explain. Do you want to hear it? Sukmi asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to tell them to go fuck themselves. Part of me just wants to understand. Why they left. Why they stayed away. Whether any of it had anything to do with me or if I was just collateral damage in their journey to self-discovery or whatever. We don't have to decide now. We can sleep on it. Think about it. Maybe talk to Marcus, see if he wants to be part of whatever this conversation is going to be. Does Marcus know his dad is gay? I have no idea what Marcus knows at this point. That kid surprises me daily. Kayla leaned against Sukmi's shoulder, this 20-year-old woman who sold dildos for $15 an hour plus tips, who just discovered her absent father in a porn arcade with another absent father, who was somehow still standing despite everything life had thrown at her. I love you, Mama, Kayla said quietly. I love you too, baby. So much. They sat like that for a long time, mother and daughter, while Oaklawn hummed outside and the universe continued its apparent mission to make Sukmi's life as complicated as possible. Eventually, Sukmi drove home. She took Central Expressway north, past North Park Mall where rich people bought things they didn't need, past the exit for the Fort Worth stockyards where tourists pretended to be cowboys, thinking about family and identity and all the ways people hid themselves. When she got home, Cameron was waiting in the kitchen. The lawyer called. He wants to talk strategy for tomorrow. For both me and Destiny. Okay. Mama, are we going to be okay? Really? Sukmi looked at her son at 16, scared, trying to be brave. She thought about Destiny and her digital vigilantism. About Ricky in Costa Rica. About Marcus and his scabies and his wonderful partner. About Kayla and her shocking discovery. About Jaden and his visions. I don't know, she said honestly. But we're going to try. That's all we can do. Just keep trying. That night, lying in bed, unable to sleep, Sukmi's phone buzzed one more time. A text from Destiny, Mama, I'm scared. About tomorrow. About the police. About everything. Me too, baby. Me too. Do you think I did the right thing? Exposing Brett? Sukmi thought about it. About right and wrong and all the gray area in between. About children who committed crimes for good reasons and adults who followed rules while doing terrible things. About the parable of the wheat and the tares, which kept coming back to her, about how you can't separate them until harvest time because you might damage the wheat trying to remove the weeds. I think you did what you thought was right, Sukmi texted back. And sometimes that's all we can do. Even when it's messy. Even when there are consequences. I'd do it again. I know. That's what scares me. And what makes me proud. Both at the same time. Love you, Mama. Love you too. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense. But sleep didn't come easy. Sukmi lay awake thinking about Derek and Jason, about absent fathers and unexpected revelations, about the conversation that was coming whether she wanted it or not. And she thought about something else, earthquakes. When she was a kid, before her parents died, they'd lived in California for 6 months. Long enough to experience a small earthquake, just a 4.2, nothing major, but enough to make the ground shift under her feet and remind her that nothing was ever as solid as it seemed. That's what this felt like. Like the ground was shifting, like everything she thought she understood about her family and her past was rearranging itself into new configurations she didn't recognize. Hindu beliefs talked about cycles, creation, preservation, destruction, rebirth. Maybe that's what this was. The destruction phase before something new could be born. Or maybe she was just losing her mind trying to make sense of the senseless. Either way, tomorrow would bring lawyers and police and explanations from men who'd been absent for nearly 2 decades. And Sukmi Kim, owner of Kim's Killer Meat Shack, mother of 6, puncher of vegans, would face it the way she faced everything, exhausted. Chapter 7, The Gospel According to Lashonda. The ice cream truck incident happened on a Saturday afternoon at the corner of Camp Bowie and University, right in front of a Walgreens where people were buying cigarettes and regret in equal measure. Lashonda had been crossing the street, legally, in the crosswalk, like a law-abiding citizen, when she heard the screaming. Not fun screaming, like kids on a roller coaster, but the kind of screaming that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. The ice cream truck, one of those ancient vehicles that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and prayers during the Nixon administration, was careening down the street with no driver visible. Its tinny speaker was blasting "Pop Goes the Weasel" at a volume that violated several Geneva conventions, and it was headed straight toward a group of kids waiting at a bus stop. Later, witnesses would describe what happened next in terms usually reserved for religious experiences or particularly good acid trips. Lashonda, 5'2", barely 100 pounds, with arms that looked like they couldn't open a jar of pickles, planted her feet in the middle of the street, bent down, and dug her withered fingers into the asphalt like she was auditioning for a superhero movie nobody asked for. The ice cream truck hit her at approximately 15 miles per hour. It stopped. Not immediately. There was a screech of metal, a smell of burning rubber, a moment where physics and willpower had a conversation about who was really in charge. But it stopped. With Lashonda still standing, her claw hands embedded in the street, her face set in an expression that said, "Not today, Satan," with her whole entire soul. The kids at the bus stop were fine. The truck was dented. And LaShonda stood up, dusted off her jeans, and said to the gathering crowd, "Y'all got cameras? 'Cause if this ain't going on the internet, I'm gonna be pissed." 17 people had been filming. By that evening, the video had 12 million views. "I don't understand," Sukmi said, watching the video for the 40th time at Kim's Killer Meat Shack. "How did you stop a truck with your hands? That's not physically possible." "Tell that to the truck," LaShonda said, examining her fingernails like she was checking for a manicure instead of evidence of vehicular combat. "Maybe it's all that crawfish etouffee I've been eating. Builds upper body strength." Crawfish etouffee builds upper body strength? "I don't know, Sukmi. I don't know how science works. I just know I saw that truck coming at those babies and my body was like, absolutely not, and then physics got real confused about whose rules we were following." The video was everywhere. Heroic woman stops runaway ice cream truck with bare hands. Local icon LaShonda Washington defies physics, saves children. One particularly enthusiastic news outlet had gone with SuperShonda, the hero Dallas deserves. By Monday morning, LaShonda's phone was ringing constantly. Podcasts wanted interviews. Morning shows wanted appearances. Someone from a reality TV production company called offering her a show called Claw Enforcement, where she'd travel around stopping various out-of-control vehicles. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard," LaShonda told them. "We're offering $50,000 for a pilot episode. I'll think about it." By Tuesday, she'd done 6 podcast interviews, 3 radio spots, and a segment on Good Morning Dallas where the host kept asking her to demonstrate her grip strength on various objects. She crushed an apple, bent a fork, and made a grown man cry by shaking his hand. "I'm not even trying that hard," LaShonda told Sukmi later. "People are just weak. Societally weak. Too much time on their phones, not enough time developing functional hand strength. You're developing a superiority complex." "I stopped a truck with my hands, Sukmi. I think I've earned a little superiority." Wednesday brought an offer from a supplement company wanting to use her image to sell vitamins that promoted natural strength development. LaShonda, who took no vitamins and subsisted primarily on gas station coffee and whatever Sukmi fed her, accepted the sponsorship deal for $20,000. Thursday, someone started a subreddit called r/LaShonda Washington where people posted photos of her stopping the truck with increasingly elaborate captions. "Local saint performs miracle. Woman too angry to obey physics. The only superhero we actually need." By Friday, LaShonda had decided to run for Fort Worth City Council. "No," Sukmi said immediately. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "I'm popular. People love me. I have name recognition. You don't know anything about City Council. You don't know what they do. You don't even know how many people are on the council." 9. Lucky guess. "Sukmi, I stopped a truck with my hands. Governing can't be harder than that. You just sit in meetings and tell people what to do. I've been doing that my whole life." "That's not how government works." "Then how does it work?" "I don't know exactly, but it's complicated. There are budgets and policies and..." "See? Nobody knows. It's all just people pretending they understand things while they steal money and fuck their secretaries. I could do that. Except the secretary part. I don't want a secretary. But I could definitely pretend to understand budgets. Lashonda had already registered as a candidate before Sukmi could talk her out of it. She'd paid the filing fee with her supplement company money and set up a campaign office in a strip mall next to a nail salon and a place that sold koi fish to people with backyard ponds they didn't know how to maintain. Her campaign slogan, Lashonda Washington, she'll stop more than trucks. Her platform, as far as Sukmi could tell, consisted entirely of being strong and not taking shit from nobody. What's your position on property taxes? A reporter asked at Lashonda's first press conference, which she held in the parking lot of her campaign office because she hadn't figured out you could rent actual press conference venues. My position is they should be lower. How would you compensate for the lost revenue? I don't know. Figure it out. That's why we have accountants. What about public transportation? We should have more of it. Good transportation. The kind that works. Can you be more specific? No. Next question. Despite, or perhaps because of, her complete lack of policy knowledge, Lashonda's campaign was gaining traction. People were tired of politicians who spoke in careful, measured tones about complex issues. They wanted someone who'd stopped a truck with her hands and didn't apologize for not knowing things. Her opponent was a career politician named Douglas Pemberton III, a man so bland he could have been artificially generated by a committee trying to create the most forgettable human possible. He had 19 years on the city council, a law degree from SMU, and the personality of unsalted butter. Their first debate was scheduled for the following Tuesday at the Fort Worth Stockyards, in a venue that usually hosted line dancing and mechanical bull riding. This should have been the first sign that things would go poorly. Meanwhile, Sukmi was dealing with her own disasters. Cameron and Destiny both had court dates approaching. Philip Chen, the lawyer, was working overtime trying to keep both of them out of serious trouble. Cameron's case was complicated by the $250,000 and the international coordination. Turns out the prince's network had stretched to 3 continents, which Sukmi hadn't known and really wished she still didn't. Destiny's case was split between people who wanted her prosecuted as a domestic terrorist and people who wanted to give her a medal. The DA was still deciding which way to go, probably based on which would get better press coverage. And then there was the Derek and Jason situation. They'd scheduled a meeting for Sunday afternoon at Sukmi's house, because apparently her fortress of security cameras and panic buttons was the neutral ground for this conversation. Marcus was coming. Kayla had agreed to attend, though she looked like she'd rather schedule her own appendectomy without anesthesia. Sunday arrived with the kind of oppressive Texas heat that made you question why anyone had ever thought settling this particular swath of land was a good idea. Sukmi had made iced tea the real kind, with too much sugar, the kind that could induce instant diabetes but tasted like childhood summers and better times. Derek and Jason arrived together, which answered some questions and raised about 40 new ones. Derek looked the same but different, older, obviously, but also somehow lighter, like he'd been carrying something heavy for years and finally put it down. He wore jeans and a button-down shirt that probably came from Target, and when he saw Kayla, his face did something complicated. Jason looked uncomfortable in his own skin, shifting weight from foot to foot, his koi fish tattoo visible under his short-sleeved shirt. He'd gained weight, lost hair, and developed the kind of nervous energy that came from years of pretending to be someone you weren't. Marcus sat on the couch next to Kayla, holding her hand. Sukmi stood by the kitchen, arms crossed, ready to throw someone out if this went sideways. Cameron and Destiny were upstairs. This wasn't their story, and they'd been excused from the family drama for once. So, Sukmi said after an unbearably long silence. Explain. Derek and Jason looked at each other. Some kind of silent communication happened. Then Derek spoke. We met in 2003. At a bar in Dallas, near Dealey Plaza. One of those places where you could be yourself, where nobody asked questions. We were both trying to figure out who we were, what we wanted, how to exist in a world that didn't make space for us. And then you met me, Sukmi said flatly. Then I met you, Derek confirmed. A few months later. You were beautiful and funny and everything seemed easier with you. Like if I just tried hard enough, I could be the person I was supposed to be. The straight person. Yeah. Jason picked up the story. Same for me. Met Derek at that bar, then met you a year later at some party in Richardson. Thought if I had a girlfriend, a kid, the right truck, the right opinions about football, I could just be normal. Whatever that means. So you used us, Marcus said quietly. Used our moms as covers. We did, Jason said. And that was wrong. Really wrong. We were scared kids ourselves, mid-20s, but still kids in a lot of ways, trying to figure out how to survive in Texas in the early 2000s when being gay wasn't something you advertised unless you wanted to get your ass kicked or worse. And the abandonment? Kayla asked, her voice sharp as broken glass. How does being gay explain leaving your daughter for 18 years? Derek's eyes filled with tears. It doesn't. There's no explanation for that, no excuse. I was a coward. I knew I couldn't be the father you needed while I was lying about who I was, so I convinced myself you were better off without me. Which was just another lie I told myself to make the cowardice feel like sacrifice. I should have said more than birthday cards, Jason said to Marcus. I should have been a father. I let my shame about who I was become an excuse for failing you, and that's on me. Not your mom. Not the world. Me. They sat with that for a moment. Jaden wandered in from the backyard, took one look at the adults having serious conversations, and wisely retreated. Are you two together? Sukmi asked. Like, together? For 15 years, Derek said. We broke up for a while, each tried the straight thing separately, came back to each other. Been together ever since. And you didn't think to mention this? To reach out? To explain? We were ashamed, Jason said. Of how we handled things. Of what we'd done. The longer we waited, the harder it got to make contact. Until it felt impossible. Until we'd convinced ourselves you all had moved on and didn't need us anyway. That's bullshit, Kayla said. I needed you. I needed a father. I needed to know why I wasn't enough to make you stay. You were enough, Derek said, his voice breaking. You were always enough. I was the one who wasn't enough. Wasn't brave enough, wasn't honest enough, wasn't the father you deserved. Marcus stood up. I don't know what you want from us. Forgiveness? Understanding? A relationship after all this time? Because I don't know if I can give you any of that. We don't want anything, Jason said. We just wanted to explain. To apologize. To let you know that our failures had nothing to do with you and everything to do with us. Well, Marcus said, thanks for the apology. It doesn't fix anything, but it's something. He looked at his father, this man who'd been absent for his entire life, who'd chosen his own comfort over his son's need for a parent. Maybe we can talk again sometime. Maybe. But not now. Now I need you to leave. Derek looked at Kayla. Can I give you my number? You don't have to call. You don't have to do anything. But if you ever want to talk, or yell at me, or just need to understand more, I'm here. I'll be here now. I know it's too late, but I'm here anyway. Kayla took the number. Didn't look at it, just folded it and put it in her pocket. I work at Books and More. The adult bookstore. If you come back there, if I see you in the arcade again, I'm going to lose my shit. You understand? That's my workplace. You don't get to make it weird. We won't, Derek said quickly. We didn't know you worked there. We'll go somewhere else. Good. They left. Derek and Jason, together, walking to their car parked in Sukmi's driveway, probably going back to whatever life they'd built in the 15 years they'd been together while their children grew up without them. After they were gone, Sukmi, Marcus, and Kayla sat in the living room, processing. That was fucked up, Kayla said finally. So fucked up, Marcus agreed. I'm sorry, Sukmi said. I'm sorry I didn't choose better fathers for you. I'm sorry my taste in men was apparently deeply closeted and fundamentally unable to parent. Not your fault, Mama, Marcus said. You didn't know. They lied to you too. Still. I brought these men into my life, into your lives, and they hurt you. That's on me. No, Kayla said firmly. That's on them. They made choices. Bad choices. You made the best choices you could with the information you had. There's a difference. They ordered pizza. Watched a movie. Pretended for a few hours that they were a normal family having a normal Sunday instead of people processing decades of abandonment and lies and complicated revelations about sexuality and cowardice. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Sukmi's phone buzzed. A text from Lashonda, the debate is Tuesday. I need you there. For moral support. And also because I might say something stupid and you can kick me under the table. You're definitely going to say something stupid, Sukmi texted back. Then you better be there to stop me. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The debate at the Fort Worth stockyards was, in a word, chaos. In several words, an absolute shitshow of spectacular proportions that should be studied by political scientists as an example of what happens when you let anyone run for office without requiring even basic knowledge of how government works. The venue was packed. News crews everywhere. Someone had brought a live goat, for reasons nobody could explain. The moderator was a local news anchor named Brenda Fitzgerald who looked like she was already regretting her life choices. Douglas Pemberton III arrived in a sensible sedan wearing a sensible suit with a sensible haircut and sensible talking points about infrastructure improvement and fiscal responsibility. Lashonda arrived in an Uber, wearing jeans, a t-shirt that said "Don't fuck with me, I stop trucks," and a belt with a buckle shaped like Texas that was so aggressively Texan it might have been performance art. Ms. Washington, Brenda began, let's start with you. What's your position on the proposed expansion of public transit in Fort Worth? My position is we need it. Can you elaborate? Sure. We need buses. Good ones. That come on time. And maybe some trains. People like trains. Trains are fun. How would you fund this expansion? I don't know. Taxes? That's what taxes are for, right? Funding shit? Pemberton jumped in. If I may, the current proposal would require a 0.5% increase in sales tax, which would disproportionately affect lower-income residents who already bear the brunt of. Nobody cares, Douglas, LaShonda interrupted. You're using a lot of words to say nothing. That's what politicians do. They talk and nobody understands them and nothing changes. I'm saying we need buses and trains and we should figure out how to pay for them. End of story. The audience applauded. Sukmi, sitting in the front row, put her head in her hands. Next question, Brenda said, looking at her notes with the expression of someone contemplating a career change. Ms. Washington, what's your stance on affordable housing? People should have houses they can afford. How would you increase the availability of affordable housing? Build more of them? Where? And using what funding mechanisms? I don't know, Brenda. I stopped a truck with my hands. I didn't go to housing policy school. But I know people need places to live that don't cost their whole paycheck, and if I'm on the council, I'll figure out how to make that happen. Or I'll find someone smart who knows how and I'll listen to them. Pemberton cleared his throat. If I may, the economics of housing development are quite complex. Zoning regulations, developer incentives, public-private partnerships. There you go again, Douglas, using complicated words to avoid committing to anything. Do you support affordable housing or not? I support sustainable development that balances market forces with community needs while maintaining fiscal responsibility. That's a no. He said a lot of words, but that's a no. More applause. Brenda looked like she was silently praying for death. The debate continued in this fashion for 90 minutes. Every question, LaShonda gave simple, direct answers that demonstrated a complete lack of policy knowledge but an abundance of confidence. Every answer, Pemberton responded with nuanced, detailed explanations that put half the audience to sleep. Then came the question about LGBTQ+ rights. Ms. Washington, Fort Worth has a significant LGBTQ+ population, particularly in areas like Oak Lawn. That's Dallas, someone in the audience yelled. Right, sorry. But Fort Worth also has a vibrant LGBTQ+ community. What would you do to support them? LaShonda paused. This was the first question where she seemed to actually think before answering. I treat them like people, she said finally. Because that's what they are. People. People who deserve the same rights and protections and opportunities as everyone else. If businesses won't serve them, those businesses can fuck off. If landlords won't rent to them, those landlords can fuck off. If anyone has a problem with people loving who they love, they can absolutely fuck off. Ms. Washington, please watch your language. No. I'm tired of watching my language. I'm tired of pretending we need to be polite about basic human dignity. People should be able to exist without fear, without discrimination, without having to hide who they are because some asshole thinks his religion or his discomfort or his whatever gives him the right to make their lives harder. That's my position. Clear enough? The room erupted. Some people cheered. Some people booed. Someone threw a bottle that missed Lashonda by 6 inches. The goat made a noise that might have been commentary. Sukmi watched her best friend, this tiny woman with withered arms and an inability to shut up, stand at that podium and refuse to back down, refuse to soften her language, refuse to pretend that bigotry deserved politeness. And she thought about Derek and Jason, about how they'd hidden for years because people like Douglas Pemberton III made careers out of balanced approaches and community values that really meant some people deserve rights and others don't. After the debate, after the chaos had died down and the goat had been removed from the premises, Lashonda found Sukmi in the parking lot. "I fucked that up," Lashonda said. "No, you didn't. I cursed on live television. Twice. 3 times? I lost count. You told the truth. Loudly and without apology. That's not fucking up. That's being brave. I'm not going to win. Probably not. But you made people listen. You made them think. That's worth something." Lashonda leaned against Sukmi's car, her small body exhausted but somehow still standing. "My arms hurt. From the truck thing. I didn't want to say anything because everyone thinks I'm some kind of superhero now, but it hurt like hell and I'm pretty sure I did permanent damage to the tendons. You should see a doctor. Doctors cost money. You have supplement company money. I spent it on the campaign filing fee and office rent." Lashonda. I know. I'm an idiot. But for a minute there, in that debate, I felt like I mattered. Like my voice mattered. Like maybe I could actually change things. You do matter. Your voice does matter. You don't need to win an election to prove that. They stood in the parking lot of the Fort Worth stockyards, 2 middle-aged women who'd somehow ended up at the center of various disasters, one running a sandwich shop while raising 6 criminal children, the other running for city council while her arms screamed in protest from stopping a truck through sheer willpower. "Want to get drunk?" Lashonda asked. "Absolutely." They went to Billy Bob's, the massive honky-tonk that claimed to be Texas's largest and probably was, depending on how you measured largest and whether you counted the mechanical bull as square footage. It was Tuesday night, so the place was mostly empty except for some die-hard regulars and a bachelorette party that had clearly started drinking in another city. They ordered whiskey. Not good whiskey. Billy Bob's wasn't that kind of place. The kind of whiskey that tasted like it had been distilled in someone's bathtub and aged in a plastic jug under a bridge. To terrible decisions, Lashonda toasted. To terrible decisions, Sukmi echoed. They drank. The bachelorette party migrated toward them, drawn by Lashonda's "Don't fuck with me" shirt. "Oh my God," the bride-to-be shrieked. "You're the truck lady. The one from the video." "I'm the truck lady," Lashonda confirmed. "Can we take a selfie with you? Will you buy me another drink?" "Yes." They took photos. Many photos. Lashonda signed autographs on napkins, on arms, on one woman's breast, over her shirt, thankfully. Someone asked her to demonstrate her grip strength by crushing a beer can, which she did, and then immediately regretted because her tendons screamed in protest. "Are you really running for city council?" one of the bridesmaids asked. "I am." "That's so cool. We need more women in government. Especially women who don't take shit." "I don't take shit. I don't even know what the shit is most of the time, but I definitely don't take it." The bachelorette party bought them 3 more rounds. By midnight, Sukmi and Lashanda were drunk enough to think mechanical bull riding seemed like a good idea. It was not a good idea. Sukmi lasted 8 seconds before being thrown into the inflatable padding that surrounded the bull. Lashanda, showing off, tried to ride with just her legs since her arms were useless. She lasted 4 seconds and landed in a way that would definitely require ice and possibly a priest. They Ubered home, leaving Sukmi's car in the Billy Bob's parking lot to be retrieved tomorrow with ibuprofen and regret. "I love you," Lashanda said in the back of the Uber, her head on Sukmi's shoulder. "You're my best friend." "You know that?" "I know. If I had to stop 1,000 trucks to save you, I would." "Please don't. Your arms are fucked up enough." "They're completely fucked. I need to see a doctor. Multiple doctors. Maybe a physical therapist. Definitely someone who knows about tendons." "Tomorrow. We'll handle it tomorrow." "Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and realize I said fuck 3 times on television during a city council debate. It was very on brand. I'm not going to win. Probably not. But I made them pay attention." "You did." Lashanda was quiet for a moment, then, "Do you ever think about breast augmentation surgery?" "What? No. Why?" "Just wondering. I've been getting ads for it. The algorithm thinks I need bigger breasts apparently. Like my arms aren't enough of a conversation starter." "The algorithm is an idiot. The algorithm is capitalism trying to convince women we're not enough as we are." That's very insightful for someone who's drunk enough to ride a mechanical bull. I contain multitudes. When they got to Lashanda's apartment, a 1-bedroom in a complex that had definitely seen better days, possibly in the 1970s, Sukmi helped her inside and made sure she had water and aspirin. "You're going to be okay," Sukmi said. "The debate, the campaign, the truck thing, all of it. You're going to be okay." "Promise?" "I promise. Now get some sleep." Sukmi Ubered home, retrieved her house keys from the Fortress security system, and found Jaden sitting at the kitchen table at 1 a.m., his eyes normal but his expression serious. "The alpaca has a message," Jaden said without preamble. "Can it wait until morning?" "He says it's important. He says Lashanda's arms are more damaged than she thinks. He says she needs to see a doctor immediately or she'll lose function permanently. He says she's too proud to ask for help but you need to make her go." Sukmi sat down heavily. Okay, I'll take her tomorrow. First thing." He also says the city council thing is a distraction. Lashanda doesn't want to govern. She wants to feel important because the truck thing made her feel important for the first time in her life, and she's chasing that feeling instead of processing the trauma of almost dying while stopping a vehicle with her bare hands. That's very specific for an alpaca." "He's a very specific alpaca, Mama." "Is he ever wrong?" "Not so far." Sukmi went to bed thinking about Lashanda, about pride and pain and the ways people sought validation. About how her best friend had stopped a truck and might have destroyed her arms doing it, but everyone was so focused on the heroism that nobody asked about the cost. She dreamed about ice cream trucks, dozens of them, hundreds, all careening down streets while Lashanda stood in their path, her small body the only thing between chaos and catastrophe, her arms extended, her face set in that expression that said not today, even as her tendons tore and her bones stressed and her body paid prices that wouldn't show up until later. She woke up at 6 a.m. with a mission: get Lashanda to a doctor, whether she wanted to go or not. But first, she had to deal with another disaster. A text from Destiny: "Mama, the DA decided. I'm being charged. Federal charges. 3 counts computer fraud, 2 counts unauthorized access, 1-count conspiracy. Philip says I'm looking at 5 years minimum if convicted. Sukmi stared at the message, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. Her daughter. Her brave, stupid, principled daughter who'd exposed a criminal and was now being treated like one herself. She texted back, I'm calling Philip. We're going to fight this. We're going to fight this so hard they're going to regret ever coming after you. 3 dots. Then, I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. More than anything. Downstairs, the house was waking up. Cameron was making coffee, his voice steady and American, the prince fully retired. Destiny's at the kitchen table, her laptop closed, tears on her face. Jaden was eating cereal and having a vision simultaneously, which had to be a choking hazard but somehow never was. This was her family. Complicated and criminal and beautiful and broken. And somewhere in Fort Worth, LaShonda Washington was probably waking up with arms that hurt more than she'd admit in a city council race she was definitely going to lose but had already changed something by running. And somewhere in Dallas, Derek and Jason were waking up together, carrying guilt they'd probably never fully shed, making choices that came 18 years too late. And somewhere in Costa Rica, Ricky was probably on a beach, pretending to be Roberto, teaching tourists to surf, living a life that didn't include his family but at least included safety. And Sukmi Kim stood in her kitchen with its panic button and its security cameras and its persistent smell of ground beef and decided, one more time, to keep fighting. For her children. For her friend. For the weird, absurd, impossible life she'd somehow built. Even when the universe kept throwing trucks at her and expecting her to stop them with her bare hands. Chapter 8, Melons, Militias, and the Material Girl. Jaden's drawings started appearing everywhere. On the kitchen table. Taped to the refrigerator. Scattered across the living room floor like some kind of fruit-based prophecy that nobody wanted to interpret. All of them showed the same thing, watermelons, honeydew melons, cantaloupes all exploding in brilliant reds and oranges and yellows, like grenades made of produce, fragments flying in every direction. It's just kid art, Cameron said, looking at one particularly detailed drawing that showed melon chunks flying toward stick figures. He's 9. Kids draw weird stuff. He drew the drug shipment in watermelons before that happened, Sukmi reminded him. He's never just drawing weird stuff. It's always something. So what, melons are going to explode? That's not even physically possible unless someone weaponizes fruit, which would be the stupidest military strategy in human history. Destiny wandered in, looking like she hadn't slept in 3 days, which she probably hadn't. Her federal charges were looming, the preliminary hearing was in 2 weeks, and Philip Chen was working overtime to build a defense that involved words like whistleblower protection and public interest and prosecutorial overreach. She picked up one of Jaden's drawings. The composition is actually interesting. See how he's using negative space here? The empty areas around the explosions create tension. It's very abstract art meets apocalyptic vision. Are you analyzing your brother's psychic prophecies from an artistic perspective? Sukmi asked. I'm trying to distract myself from the fact that I'm probably going to federal prison. Destiny set the drawing down carefully. Did you know Madonna almost went to prison? Multiple times, actually. For obscenity charges. I did not know that. Also, what does Madonna have to do with anything? Everything. Madonna has to do with everything. Destiny pulled out her phone, scrolling through what appeared to be research notes. Okay, so 1989. Like a prayer video. She burns crosses, makes out with a black saint, has stigmata. The Vatican condemns it. Pepsi drops her sponsorship deal, costs her $5 million. There are actual protests. The Pope, Mama, speaks out against her. She gets death threats. Real ones, not internet trolls. People wanted her arrested for blasphemy. Blasphemy isn't actually illegal in America, Cameron noted. That's not the point. The point is she did it anyway. Knew it would be controversial, knew it would cost her money and endorsements and piss off powerful people, and she did it because it was art and it meant something. Destiny's eyes were bright, almost feverish. She was making a statement about racism and sexuality and religion, and she didn't care who it offended because the message was more important than being safe. Sukmi understood where this was going. Destiny, you're not Madonna. You're a 19-year-old girl who hacked a television broadcast. To expose corruption. To reveal truth. That's what artists do. That's what Madonna's always done, forced people to look at uncomfortable truths. Madonna's a millionaire with lawyers and resources. You're a teenager with a public defender we can barely afford. Destiny's face fell. Philip's not a public defender. We're paying him. With what money? The GoFundMe? The BBC documentary payment? Baby, we're broke. We've always been broke. We're just broke with slightly better PR now. LaShonda let herself in. She had all the codes, all the keys, and absolutely no concept of boundaries. Her arms were in braces now, after Sukmi had physically dragged her to a doctor who'd diagnosed severe tendon damage, microfractures in both forearms, and nerve compression that might be permanent. Stop the truck, they said, LaShonda muttered, struggling with the door. Be a hero, they said. Nobody mentioned I'd need 6 months of physical therapy and possibly surgery. How's the campaign? Cameron asked. Dead. Lost by 17 points. Turns out people want their city council members to actually know things about city councils. Revolutionary concept. She collapsed on the couch. But I got 12,000 votes. 12,000 people looked at me and said, yes, that woman who doesn't know anything but curses a lot, that's who I want representing me. That's something. That's terrifying, Sukmi said. That's democracy, baby. Jaden wandered in from the backyard, his hands covered in marker and his eyes that normal but not quite normal way they got when the alpaca was close. The melons are coming soon, he said in his regular voice. The alpaca says 3 days. Maybe 4. He's not great with timing. Time is different for alpacas. What's going to happen with the melons? Sukmi asked, crouching to his level. They're going to explode. Not really explode, they're not bombs. But people are going to think they're bombs, and that's when the shooting starts. He paused, his small face serious. The men from before are coming back too. The ones with the gold chains. They're angry about something. The alpaca can't see exactly what, but he says you should be careful. Hawaiian shirt and his friends. The ones Todd had shot. The ones who'd made bail and disappeared. Sukmi's stomach clenched. When are they coming? Soon. Everything's happening soon. The melons, the men, the thing with the pirates. Pirates? I don't know what that means yet. The visions aren't clear. But there are pirates. Or people dressed like pirates. Or a pirate-themed event. Time is weird and the alpaca isn't always literal. This is my life, Sukmi said to LaShonda. My 9-year-old gets visions from a psychic alpaca about exploding melons and pirates, and I just have to accept that this is normal. Nothing about your life is normal, Sukmi. That's what makes it interesting. The next day at Kim's Killer Meat Shack, business was steady but weird. People kept coming in asking about Destiny, about whether Sukmi thought her daughter was a hero or a criminal, about whether the sandwich shop would be featured in the trial coverage. We're trying a new sandwich, Sukmi told them, changing the subject aggressively. The Destiny Special. It's like the sloppy Kim but with jalapenos and this ghost pepper aioli that'll make you reconsider your life choices. Is it meant to represent her burning down the system? One customer asked, completely serious. It's meant to taste good and cost $8. The symbolism is optional. That afternoon, a man in an expensive suit walked in. Not a customer. Definitely not a customer. He had the look of someone who'd never eaten at a place with a drive-thru, let alone a sandwich shop in a strip mall. Sukmi Kim? That's me. I'm Bradford Winters, attorney for Brett Chandler. My client would like to discuss a civil settlement regarding the damages caused by your daughter's unlawful actions. Sukmi set down her spatula very carefully. Your client was stealing from charity. From sick children. My daughter exposed that. If anything, you should be paying her. Your daughter accessed private financial records without authorization, disseminated confidential information, and caused significant reputational harm. Reputational harm? He was stealing from sick children. His reputation should be harmed. Be that as it may, we're prepared to file a civil suit seeking damages in the amount of $2 million for. Get the fuck out of my shop. Ms. Kim. No. You don't come into my place of business and threaten my family with lawsuits while your client was literally stealing from children's charity. You get out. Now. Before I call my lawyer and he explains to you why this is a terrible idea. Bradford Winters adjusted his tie. You'll be hearing from us formally. Through proper channels. After he left, Sukmi called Philip Chen. Can they do that? Sue Destiny for exposing Brett's crimes? Unfortunately, yes. Civil suits have a lower burden of proof than criminal cases. They can argue defamation, unauthorized access, damages to his earning potential. Whether they'll win is another question, but they can definitely sue. How much is this going to cost to defend? Philip was quiet for a moment. A lot. More than we've been charging you. More than the GoFundMe money. I can try to get it dismissed quickly, but if it goes to trial. How much? 50,000. Maybe more. Sukmi hung up and sat in the back room of her sandwich shop, surrounded by meat and buns and all the infrastructure of her small business, and tried not to cry. She'd been trying not to cry a lot lately. She was getting pretty good at it. LaShonda found her there 20 minutes later. What happened? Sukmi explained. The lawsuit, the money, the impossibility of defending Destiny against both federal charges and a civil suit simultaneously. So we fundraise, LaShonda said simply. We tell people what's happening. They'll help. I'm tired of asking for help. I'm tired of being the sad story people throw money at out of pity. It's not pity. It's solidarity. There's a difference. LaShonda sat down heavily, her braced arms awkward in her lap. You know what Madonna did in 1992? Published a book called Sex. Actual pornography, well, artistic pornography, but still. Black and white photos of her in every position imaginable, with men and women, in various states of undress and activity. Simulated everything. Some not so simulated. Why are you telling me this? Because everyone lost their minds. Stores refused to stock it. Warner Brothers tried to stop distribution. Religious groups protested. She was on every news channel being called a degenerate, a threat to children, morally bankrupt. People literally burned copies in the street. And she didn't apologize. Didn't back down. Sold over 1 million copies in the first week. Made her point about sexuality and censorship and double standards. She took the heat, Destiny's taking heat too, but for exposing someone who was actually hurting people. That means something. Madonna had money to weather the storm. We don't. Then we find money. We get creative. We survive. That's what we do, Sukmi. We survive. That night, Destiny came downstairs holding her laptop, her face pale. I got an email. From someone who says they're with Anonymous, the hacker collective. They saw what I did with Brett Chandler. They want me to join them. Absolutely not, Sukmi said immediately. They're offering resources, legal support, protection. They say they have lawyers who specialize in this kind of case. They're also international criminals, baby. Joining them would make your legal situation approximately 1 million times worse. But they're doing important work. Exposing corruption, fighting for transparency. From countries without extradition treaties. You're in America, facing American charges. You can't just become an international hacktivist collective member and expect that to help. Destiny set her laptop down, defeated. I just want to do something. I want to fight back. I want to matter. You do matter. You always have. You don't need to join Anonymous to prove that. Cameron appeared in the doorway. My court date got moved up. Next week. Philip says the DA is offering a plea deal, probation, community service, restitution of the money I made. No jail time if I take it. That's good news, isn't it? Sukmi asked. I don't know. Taking the deal means admitting guilt. Means having a record. Means everyone always knowing I was the prince, that I coordinated criminal activities for 2 years. But you're alive and free. That's worth something. Is it? Is being alive but marked as a criminal for the rest of my life really better than fighting and maybe losing? These were her children. Brilliant and stupid and principled and reckless. Fighting systems bigger than themselves, making choices that would follow them forever, trying to figure out how to exist in a world that didn't make space for people who refused to play by rules they didn't believe in. Take the deal, Sukmi said quietly. Fight the battles you can win. Accept the losses that keep you free. There's no shame in survival. 3 days later, exactly when Jaden predicted, the Melons arrived. There was a militia rally happening at a park off Route 820, near the Trinity River. One of those groups that called themselves patriots and dressed in tactical gear they bought from army surplus stores, who talked about defending freedom while mostly just drinking beer and complaining about the government. They'd scheduled a preparedness demonstration, which apparently meant showing off their guns and doing tactical drills in a public park while children played on nearby swings and parents pretended this was normal. The Melon truck, a refrigerated delivery vehicle from a produce distributor in Houston, was heading to a grocery store 2 blocks away. The driver, 63 years old and 3 months from retirement, had been driving trucks for 40 years without incident. Until a tire blew at exactly the wrong moment, sending the truck careening off the road, through a decorative fence, and directly into the militia rally. Crates of melons, watermelons, honeydews, cantaloupes, exactly like Jaden's drawings, exploded across the park. Literally exploded. Not from bombs, but from impact, from weight, from wooden crates shattering against the ground and physics doing what physics does. But it looked like explosions. Sounded like explosions. Red melon flesh flying like shrapnel, the wet smack of fruit hitting surfaces that could have been mistaken for something more sinister by people already primed for violence. Someone screamed attack. Someone else yelled Antifa bombers. And then someone nobody would ever be entirely sure who pulled out a machine gun and started firing. Not at anyone specific. Just firing. Into the air, into the ground, into the general chaos that had erupted when produce became a perceived threat. Other militia members pulled their weapons. Some people ran. Some people hit the ground. Some people pulled out their phones to film, because in 2025, documenting disaster was more instinctive than self-preservation. Sukmi was there. She'd driven out to scout a potential second location for Kim's Killer Meat Shack, a ridiculous idea she'd been entertaining because the flagship location was too crowded and she needed more space. The property she'd been looking at was 3 blocks from the park, and when she heard the first shots, her body made the decision before her brain could stop it. She ran toward the sound. Later, she wouldn't be able to explain why. Maternal instinct, maybe, even though her kids weren't there. Or maybe just the muscle memory of years spent running toward disasters instead of away from them because someone had to and nobody else was moving. The scene was chaos. People screaming, running, shooting. Melon flesh everywhere, looking disturbingly like blood in the afternoon sun. The truck driver trapped in his cab, trying to radio for help. Children crying. Parents shielding kids with their bodies while men in tactical gear waved guns and shouted about domestic terrorism through mouthfuls of watermelon. Sukhmi grabbed the nearest militia member, a guy maybe 30, holding an AR-15 like it was his emotional support animal. "Stop firing," she screamed. "It's an attack. They're bombing us. They're melons. Look at your shoes. That's cantaloupe." He looked down. His boots were covered in orange mush. His face did something complicated as his brain tried to reconcile his fear with the reality that he was standing in fruit salad. But the explosions. Produce crates. Impact physics. Not bombs. She moved through the crowd, grabbing weapons, pushing them toward the ground, screaming at people to stop shooting at imaginary enemies. Most of them listened, not because she was particularly intimidating, but because she had the voice of someone who'd spent decades yelling at children and was no longer capable of being ignored. But one guy didn't listen. Hawaiian shirt. Not wearing a Hawaiian shirt this time, but she recognized him immediately. Marcus Chen, former drug dealer, current existential crisis, apparently also current militia member or at least militia adjacent. He was pointing his weapon at the truck driver, who'd finally managed to get out of his cab. "You did this on purpose." Hawaiian shirt was shouting. "This is a false flag. You're trying to make us look bad." "I'm a truck driver," the old man yelled back. "I deliver produce. My tire blew. That's literally what happened." "Lies. You're probably FBI. This is entrapment." Sukhmi approached slowly, hands visible. Marcus Chen. Remember me?" He turned, gun still raised. His eyes were wrong, too wide, too focused, the kind of wrong that came from bath salts or meth or just untreated paranoia that had been allowed to ferment for too long. "You're part of it," he said. "You and your kids. The drug money. The corruption. It's all connected." The alpaca was right. The alpaca? Sukhmi's brain tried to process this. "How do you know about the alpaca?" "Everyone knows about the alpaca. He's been posting predictions online. He predicted this. He said the melons would explode and reveal the truth about the government's fruit-based psychological operations." This was not the time to unpack the fact that apparently someone was posting Jaden's visions online and attributing them to a psychic alpaca that random militia members were following. "Marcus, the alpaca isn't real. I mean, he's real to my son, but he's not a political movement. He's a psychic vision animal. Put the gun down. The truth is coming." Hawaiian shirt was screaming now, his gun waving between Sukhmi and the truck driver and the general universe. "The melons are just the beginning. Soon the pirates will arrive. The torsion of the system will reveal itself. Everything will." Todd tackled him. Appeared from nowhere, not really nowhere. He'd probably been following Sukhmi again with his protective stalker routine and took Hawaiian shirt to the ground in a move that looked like it came from a police training manual. The gun went off. One shot. Just one. And Sukhmi felt something hot and sharp tear through her left side, just above her hip, a sensation that her brain registered as important before the pain arrived a second later with all its friends. She looked down. Blood. Her blood. Spreading across her shirt in a way that seemed excessive but also maybe not excessive enough to be fatal, though she wasn't a doctor and had no frame of reference for what fatal looked like. "Mama?" Cameron's voice, from somewhere. He'd followed her? When did he follow her? "I'm okay," she said automatically, the lie mothers tell even when they're very much not okay. Then her legs stopped working and she sat down hard on ground that was sticky with melon and blood and probably other things she didn't want to think about. Todd was on his phone calling 911. The shooting had stopped. The militia members were slowly realizing they'd fired dozens of rounds at watermelons, and then one of them had actually shot an innocent woman who'd been trying to help. Sukmi lay back on the ground and looked at the sky. It was a nice sky. Blue. Some clouds. A bird, maybe a hawk, maybe a crow. She wasn't good at bird identification, circling overhead like it was waiting to see if she'd become carrion. Not today, bird, she whispered. I've got too much shit to deal with. Cameron was kneeling next to her, pressing something against her side. A shirt? His shirt? Everything was getting a little fuzzy. Stay with me, Mama. Ambulance is coming. Stay with me. Did you take the plea deal? She asked. What? The plea deal. For the Prince thing. Did you take it? Mama, that's not important right now. Did you take it? Yes. I took it. Signed the papers this morning. Probation, community service, restitution. No jail time. I'm free. Good, Sukmi said. That's good. One less thing to worry about. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics swarmed. Someone was asking her questions she couldn't quite focus on. Date of birth? Allergies? Was she pregnant? That last one made her laugh, which hurt, which made her stop laughing. 6 kids, she told the paramedic. Had 6 kids. All different fathers. Most of them criminals in various ways. Did the best I could. Mostly failed. But sometimes succeeded. It's complicated. Ma'am, I need you to stay focused. Madonna got in trouble in 2003, Sukmi said, her brain grabbing onto something Destiny had told her. American Life video. Military imagery during the Iraq War. MTV refused to air it. People said she was anti-American. Death threats again. Always death threats with Madonna. But she pulled the video herself. Said she didn't want to risk soldiers' safety because of controversy around her art. People forget that part. She compromised. Even Madonna compromises sometimes. Ma'am, we're going to move you now. Tell Destiny she can fight, but she can also compromise. Tell her Madonna knew when to push and when to pull back. Tell her. Everything went fuzzy. Then black. Then bright lights. Then voices that sounded like they were underwater. She woke up in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and defeat. Todd was sitting in a chair by the window. Cameron was asleep in another chair, his head at an angle that was definitely going to give him neck pain. Hey, Todd said softly when he saw her eyes open. Am I dead? Sukmi asked. No. Bullet went through clean. Missed everything important. You've got about 15 stitches, some bruising, and a story you'll be dining out on for years. Hawaiian shirt? In custody. Federal custody, actually. Turns out he was already wanted for the original shooting at your shop, plus about 6 other charges. He's not getting out for a long time. The truck driver? Fine. Traumatized, but fine. Already talking about early retirement. The melons? Evidence in about 40 different criminal proceedings. Also, you'll be pleased to know that Jaden's psychic alpaca has a Reddit following now. Someone's been posting his predictions and they've been scarily accurate. That's horrifying. That's the internet. Sukmi tried to sit up. Her side screamed. She decided lying down was fine, actually. Destiny, she asked. Outside. They're only allowing 2 visitors at a time. She's been here all night. Cameron made her go get coffee because she was having a panic attack. The door opened. Not Destiny, LaShonda, pushing through with her braced arms and her total disregard for visitor policies. "You absolute idiot," LaShonda said, tears streaming down her face. "Running toward gunfire. Who does that? Who runs toward gunfire?" "Mothers," Sukmi said. "Mothers run toward danger. It's hardwired. Can't help it. You could have died. But I didn't. I got shot, which is different from dying. I'm very clear on that distinction now." LaShonda sat on the edge of the bed carefully, mindful of tubes and monitors and all the medical equipment that was apparently keeping Sukmi alive-ish. "The supplement company dropped me," LaShonda said. "Turns out woman with permanent arm damage from heroic truck stopping isn't the image they want for natural strength development vitamins." "I'm sorry. Don't be. Fuck them. I've got other opportunities. Some podcast wants me to do a weekly show about political activism. I'd just be talking about stuff I don't understand with confidence. So, basically what I've always done, but with a microphone." A nurse came in to check vitals, adjust medications, ask the same questions they'd been asking every hour. "Pain level? 7. Maybe 8. Possibly 12. Nausea? Moderate. Did she know where she was? Hell, probably." After the nurse left, Cameron woke up, saw his mother awake, and immediately started crying. "I'm okay, baby," Sukmi said. "You got shot, Mama. You got shot trying to stop militia members from shooting at melons. That's the most ridiculous sentence I've ever said, and it's true. Welcome to the Kim family experience. Everything's ridiculous and nothing makes sense, and we just keep surviving anyway." Destiny finally came in, bringing coffee and tears and a laptop covered in stickers about digital freedom and encryption. "Mama, I'm dropping the fight," she said without preamble. "Philip says I can take a plea deal. Guilty to 1 count of unauthorized access, time served plus probation. The other charges get dropped. I won't have to go to trial. And Brett Chandler's civil suit gets dismissed as part of the agreement." "Baby. No. You almost died because I exposed him. He's suing us because I exposed him. Everything is spiraling and I can't keep fighting when it's hurting everyone around me. Madonna pulled the American Life video when it threatened people. I can pull back too. That's not the same." "It is the same. Madonna knew when the cost was too high. The cost is too high now, Mama. I'm taking the deal." Sukmi wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her daughter to keep fighting, that injustice deserved to be exposed regardless of consequences. But she was tired. So tired. And her side hurt. And she'd been shot at a militia rally while standing in melon debris because her son's psychic alpaca had predicted it days in advance and nobody had known how to stop it. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay. Take the deal. Live your life. Be free. That's all I want for any of you. Just be free." That evening, after visiting hours ended and everyone had reluctantly left, Sukmi lay in her hospital bed watching the news coverage of what they were calling the Melon Militia incident. The stories were already being reframed. Sukmi wasn't mentioned much, just a local woman who'd been injured. The focus was on Hawaiian Shirt, on the militia group, on the truck driver who'd survived an accidental collision with an extremist rally. But on social media, which Destiny showed her before leaving, Sukmi was trending again. Asian mom survives shootout number 2. Kim's killer meat shack owner gets actually shot this time. Someone protect this woman, she's clearly immortal. Kayla had posted a long thread about her mother's resilience, about raising 6 kids alone, about surviving everything the universe threw at her. Marcus had shared it, adding his own story about growing up with Sukmi as a mother, about her imperfect love that was somehow always enough. Even Ricky, from Costa Rica, had somehow found it and commented, "My mama's a badass. Always has been. Miss you, mama. Proud of you." Sukmi cried then. Actual crying, not the holding it back kind. The morphine helped. So did the exhaustion. So did the realization that her children loved her despite everything, because of everything, in that complicated way families loved each other when love was messy and imperfect and shot through with holes but still standing. A nurse came in to check her vitals one more time before shift change. You're famous, you know, the nurse said, adjusting the 4. My daughter follows you on TikTok. She thinks you're a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother who makes bad decisions and somehow survives them. Same thing, sometimes. After the nurse left, Sukmi's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The alpaca says you're going to be okay. He says the bullet missed everything important because you still have things to do. He says the pirates are coming in 6 weeks and you'll need to be healed by then. He says also you should know that the Hindu concept of dharma means you're fulfilling your purpose, even when your purpose looks like chaos. Jaden. Somehow texting from someone else's phone, probably Todd's, because Sukmi didn't let him have his own phone yet because he was 9 and couldn't be trusted not to accidentally start a cult. She texted back, tell the alpaca thank you. Also tell him to stop posting predictions online. He's radicalizing militia members. He says that's not his fault. People interpret visions how they want to interpret them. He's just showing what's coming. Tell him to be more careful. He says he can't. Visions don't work that way. He says you should read more romance novels because they help you understand that happy endings are possible even after terrible middles. The alpaca reads romance novels? The alpaca exists outside conventional understanding of literacy and genre fiction. Go to bed, Jaden. Love you, Mama. Love you too, baby. Sukmi set her phone down and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd deal with hospital bills she couldn't afford. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to run her sandwich shop while recovering from a gunshot wound. Tomorrow she'd help Destiny and Cameron navigate their plea deals. Tomorrow she'd figure out what pirates meant and why they were coming in 6 weeks. But tonight, she was just going to sleep in this uncomfortable hospital bed with its scratchy sheets and beeping monitors and the persistent smell of antiseptic and human suffering. And dream about melons that didn't explode. And birds that flew away instead of circling. And children who made choices she could understand. And a life that made sense. Even though she knew, deep down, that none of those dreams would ever quite come true. Not for Sukmi Kim. Not for someone whose life had become a John Waters film she never auditioned for, starring people she'd accidentally created, following a plot she couldn't predict. But she'd survive it. She always did. Even when survival meant getting shot at militia rallies while standing in melon debris, because your psychic 9-year-old had predicted it and you'd somehow ended up there anyway. That was just how life worked. When you were Sukmi Kim. Mother of 6. Owner of Kim's Killer Meat Shack. Survivor of everything. Whether she wanted to be or not. Chapter 9, The Triple Penetration Incident. The letter appeared on Tuesday morning, tucked under the cash register at Kim's Killer Meat Shack where the overnight cleaning crew wouldn't have seen it but Sukmi would find it first thing. Plain white envelope. No address. No stamp. Just 3 words typed on a single piece of paper. Triple Penetration Incident. Sukmi stared at it for a full minute, her brain trying to process whether this was a prank, a threat, or some kind of extremely weird spam that had somehow manifested physically. What's that? Lashonda asked, arriving for her morning coffee with her arms still in braces but healing slowly. I don't know. Someone left me a note about something called the Triple Penetration Incident. Lashonda's face went pale. Actually pale, which was notable because Lashonda didn't do fear easily. Where did you get that? It was just here. Under the register. Why? What is it? LaShonda sat down heavily. Girl, that's not something people talk about. Not around here. Not if they know what's good for them. What happened? 1987, before you moved here. There was this bar Rusty's, down on North Main, that's not there anymore. Got demolished in the 90s, they put a CVS there now. One night, 3 men walked in. Nobody knows why, nobody knows what started it. But there was a fight. A bad fight. When it was over, 5 people were dead, a dozen more in the hospital. Why is it called the triple penetration incident? Because 3 of the dead were stabbed, penetrated, with bar equipment. Pool cues, broken bottles, a beer tap somebody ripped off the counter. It was brutal. The kind of thing that makes news nationally. But it didn't. Why not? Because people in power made sure it didn't. The men who started the fight, they were connected. Rich families, political families. The kind of people who can make things disappear. They paid off witnesses, bought silence, buried the story so deep it might as well have never happened. Anyone who tried to talk about it, bad things happened to them. Lost jobs. Lost houses. One guy ended up in a car accident that nobody believed was an accident. Sukhmi looked at the note again. Why would someone send this to me? I don't know. But if someone's bringing up the triple penetration incident now, after 40 years of silence, that means something big is happening. Something somebody wants you to know about. Or somebody wants to warn you away from. That evening, Sukhmi was closing up the shop when a man walked in. Older, maybe 70, with the kind of weathered face that came from outdoor work and hard living. He wore a pocket watch on a chain, actually wore a pocket watch, like he'd stepped out of a Little House on the Prairie episode set in urban Texas. We're closed, Sukhmi said. I know. I'm not here for food. He pulled out a chair and sat down without asking. My name is Thomas Pemberton. I was there. At Rusty's. The night of the triple penetration incident. Sukhmi's stomach clenched. Why are you telling me this? Because the men who started the fight that night? They're not done. They've been running operations in Fort Worth for 40 years, drugs, money laundering, protection rackets. Small scale, careful, never enough to draw federal attention. But they're getting old. And they're trying to secure their operations, make sure the next generation can take over. What does this have to do with me? Your son. Ricky. He didn't just steal cryptocurrency from a cartel. He stole it from them. From the Pemberton family operation. My family. He said it with something like shame. I left the family business after that night at Rusty's. Couldn't stomach it anymore. But my brothers stayed in. My nephews. They're the ones your son stole from. $20 million in cryptocurrency, Sukhmi said slowly, putting pieces together. 50 million, actually. Your son only got the keys to part of it. But even part was enough to make them very, very angry. Thomas leaned forward. They're planning something. Soon. They're going to come for your family. All of you. Not to kill, they're not that stupid, too much attention, but to send a message. To take something from you the way you took from them. Why are you warning me? Because I've spent 40 years trying to make up for what happened at Rusty's. For the people who died while I stood by and did nothing. I can't change the past, but I can maybe stop them from adding your family to the body count. He left before Sukhmi could ask more questions, disappearing into the parking lot like he'd never been there. She called Todd immediately. Then Philip Chen the lawyer. Then LaShonda. Then gathered her children for an emergency family meeting that probably should have included wine because she was still on pain medication from the gunshot wound. Cameron, Destiny, Marcus, via video call, Kayla, and Jaden all assembled in the living room. Even Cameron looked scared, and the prince didn't scare easily. We have a problem, Sukhmi said. Multiple problems, actually, but this one's urgent. She explained everything. The note. Thomas Pemberton's visit. The triple penetration incident. The connection to Ricky's cryptocurrency theft. The threat against their family. So what do we do? Destiny asked. We could run, Marcus suggested. Leave Fort Worth. Start over somewhere else. With what money? Kayla countered. We're broke. Mama's still paying off medical bills. Cameron's got restitution payments. Destiny's got legal fees. We can't just relocate. We could fight, Cameron said quietly. I still have contacts. People who owe me favors from the Prince days. I could call in resources. No, Sukmi said firmly. No more crime. No more putting yourselves in danger. We're doing this legally. We're going to the police, the FBI, whoever will listen. They didn't listen in 1987, LaShonda pointed out. The Pembertons bought their silence. What makes you think it'll be different now? Because everything's different now. Everything's documented. Social media. Video cameras everywhere. Harder to bury things when everyone's filming everything. Jaden, who'd been quiet, suddenly spoke up. His eyes weren't rolled back, this was just him, not the alpaca. The pirates, he said. The vision I had about pirates. It's them. The Pemberton family. They're planning something at the Pirate Festival next week. That's when they're going to do it. Sukmi had forgotten about the Pirate Festival, a ridiculous annual event in Fort Worth where people dressed like pirates and drank heavily and pretended that Texas had any historical connection to nautical piracy beyond being embarrassing at parties. How do you know? She asked. The alpaca showed me. But also I overheard you on the phone with Todd talking about it, and my brain connected the dots. So like, 50% psychic vision, 50% regular deductive reasoning. That's not how psychic visions work, Destiny said. I'm 9. I'm still figuring out my process. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Todd arrived with 2 of his security team members. Philip Chen came with legal documents and recording equipment. LaShonda showed up with a baseball bat she'd somehow managed to carry despite her arm braces, because LaShonda's solution to every problem involved being prepared to hit something. The plan was simple: go to the Pirate Festival, document everything, and if the Pembertons made their move, catch it on camera while Todd's security team kept everyone safe. Then take the evidence to the FBI, the media, anyone who would listen. It wasn't a great plan. But it was the only one they had. The Fort Worth Pirate Festival happened every year in a park near the Trinity River, in a space that smelled like barbecue and bad decisions. People dressed in elaborate costumes, tricorn hats, eye patches, puffy shirts that looked like they'd been purchased from the Halloween clearance bin at Target. There were activities for kids, beer for adults, and a general atmosphere of manufactured whimsy that felt very Texas in its commitment to theme events that made no geographical sense. Sukmi brought everyone. All her children except Ricky, who was still in Costa Rica but had been video calling daily since he'd heard about the threat. Todd and his security team. LaShonda with her bat and her braced arms. Even Philip Chen, wearing what might have been a pirate costume or might have been a very unfortunate choice of business casual. They spread out through the festival, staying in sight of each other, phones ready to record, waiting for something to happen. At 3 p.m., it happened. A truck rolled into the festival grounds. Not a big truck, just a panel van, the kind you'd use for deliveries. It parked near the main stage where a Jimmy Buffett cover band was murdering Margaritaville with steel drums and excessive enthusiasm. 6 men got out. Not wearing pirate costumes. Wearing normal clothes. Looking very much like men with a purpose, and that purpose was violence. Thomas Pemberton had been right. The lead man, maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of face that suggested he'd paid for several sports cars with money from illegal enterprises, walked straight toward Sukmi. Sukmi Kim, he said. Not a question. A statement. I'm Richard Pemberton. We need to talk about what your son took from us. We're in a public place, Sukmi said, her voice steadier than she felt. Surrounded by families and children and at least 30 people filming everything on their phones. Whatever you're planning, you should rethink it. Oh, we're not planning violence. We're civilized people. He smiled. It was not a reassuring smile. We're planning a trade. You give us information on where your son is hiding, the one in Costa Rica pretending to teach surfing, and we leave your family alone. Forever. I don't know where he is. You're his mother. Of course you know. Even if I did know, I wouldn't tell you. You'd kill him. We wouldn't kill him. We'd just make him wish he'd never stolen from us. There's a difference. That's when Hawaiian Shirt appeared. Not Hawaiian Shirt, Marcus Chen was in federal custody. But his cousin, who looked remarkably similar and was also named Marcus Chen because apparently the family had limited naming creativity. Marcus Chen too walked up to Richard Pemberton and said, very clearly, that's enough. This ends now. Who the fuck are you? Richard asked. I'm the guy who's been working with the FBI for 6 months to build a RICO case against your entire organization. And you just threatened this woman in front of approximately 40 witnesses with recording devices. So thanks for that. Really sealed the deal. FBI agents appeared from everywhere, not everywhere, but enough places that it felt like everywhere. From the crowd, from behind vendor booths, from what Sukmi could have sworn was inside a giant inflatable peacock decoration. Richard Pemberton's face went through several emotions very quickly: confusion, anger, understanding, resignation. You're fucking kidding me, he said. The original Marcus Chen, my cousin, he turned informant after the shooting at Kim's Killer Meat Shack. Realized he was in over his head, realized people were going to die if he didn't do something. So he made a deal. He gave up everything about your operation in exchange for witness protection. Spent the last 6 months helping us build this case. That's spineless. Survivor, Marcus Chen too corrected. He's a survivor. Unlike you, who's about to spend the rest of his life in federal prison. The FBI moved in. Arrested Richard Pemberton and his 5 companions. Read them rights. Put them in cars that had been waiting 3 blocks away. Hawaiian Shirt, the original, emerged from one of the FBI vehicles, looking healthier than Sukmi had ever seen him. Cleaner. Sober, probably for the first time in years. I'm sorry, he said to Sukmi, for the shooting. For terrorizing your family. For all of it. I was using, and I was desperate, and I made terrible choices. But I'm trying to make better ones now. You're testifying against them? Sukmi asked. Against everyone. The Pembertons, the cartel connections, the whole network. It's going to take years of trials, but they're all going down. And your son's safe. Ricky. He's safe. The FBI made sure of it. Sukmi wanted to hug him. She wanted to hit him. She wanted to do both simultaneously. Instead, she just nodded. Thank you. For choosing something better. For helping protect my family. You helped me first. At the shop. You could have let me bleed out after Todd shot me. But you didn't. You called the ambulance. You stayed with me until they came. That meant something. The Pirate Festival continued around them, oblivious to the federal operation that had just concluded. The Jimmy Buffett cover band was now murdering Cheeseburger in Paradise. Children ran around with plastic swords. Adults drank rum from commemorative cups shaped like pirate skulls. LaShonda approached, still holding her baseball bat. So we're good? The bad guys are arrested? We can stop living in fear? Yeah, Sukmi said. I think we're good. Her phone rang. Ricky, calling from Costa Rica. Mama? FBI just called me. Said I'm clear. Said I can come home if I want. Not to Fort Worth, they're still concerned about residual threats, but maybe to America. Maybe to a different city. Start over for real this time. Do you want to come home? Sukmi asked. I don't know. I kind of like it here. The beach, the surfing, the not looking over my shoulder constantly. But I miss you. I miss everyone. Even Cameron and his criminal empire. Even Destiny and her hacktivist tendencies. Even Marcus and his scabies. Those are cleared up, Sukmi said. The scabies. Not the criminal empire or hacktivist tendencies. Those are ongoing. Tell everyone I love them. And Mama? I'm proud of you. For not running. For standing up to them. For being the baddest woman I know. Language, she said automatically, even though the word baddest was barely profanity. Love you, Mama. Love you too, baby. That evening, after the festival, after the FBI had finished taking statements, after the local news had arrived and gotten footage of the arrests, the family gathered at Sukmi's house. Everyone. Cameron and Destiny and Jaden, Marcus, in person for once. His apartment was only 15 minutes away, Kayla fresh from her shifted books and more, Todd and LaShonda, even Philip Chen who'd somehow become part of the extended family through sheer persistence. Sukmi ordered pizza. 6 large pizzas, different toppings, the kind of feast you have when something big and terrible has ended and you're still standing. They ate and talked and laughed and argued and generally acted like a family that had survived something worth surviving. I got my Nobel Prize in the mail today, Jaden announced casually while eating pepperoni with his hands. Everyone stopped. You're what? Sukmi asked. Nobel Prize. Well, not the real one. It's from this organization that gives fake Nobel Prizes to kids who have unique abilities. I got nominated for my psychic visions and they sent me a certificate and a medal made of chocolate. That's not the Nobel Prize, baby. That's a participation trophy from an organization that probably wants donations. Still counts. The alpaca says I should put it on my resume. You're 9. You don't have a resume. The alpaca says I should start one. He says resume building begins early. Destiny was scrolling through her phone. Mama, the video of the FBI arrests is going viral. Like, really viral. FBI takes down crime family at Pirate Festival is trending. Someone made a TikTok using the Pirates of the Caribbean theme music. It has 8 million views. Of course it does, Sukmi said. Of course our family trauma becomes internet content. That's just how our lives work now. Marcus, her son, not Hawaiian shirt or his cousin, raised his water glass. A toast. To surviving. To staying together. To being the weirdest, most criminal-adjacent family in Fort Worth and somehow making it work. To surviving, they echoed. They clinked glasses water, soda, beer for the adults, wine for Sukmi because pain medication be damned, she'd earned it. LaShonda stood up, awkwardly because her arms, to make her own announcement. I got a book deal. Some publisher wants me to write about my experience stopping the ice cream truck and running for city council. They're offering $50,000 for a memoir. LaShonda, you can't write, Sukmi said. I know. That's why they're giving me a ghostwriter. I just have to talk, they write it down, and we split the money. It's the best scam I've ever been part of that's actually legal. What are you going to call it? Cameron asked. Law enforcement, how I stopped trucks and ran for office without knowing anything about anything. The publisher thinks it's marketable. It is marketable, Kayla said. In this economy? In this political climate? People love authentic ignorance. That's not an insult, that's an observation about society. they talked late into the night. About Derek and Jason, about whether Kayla would pursue a relationship with her father now that he'd offered. About Marcus and River, who were apparently talking about moving in together despite only dating for 6 months. About Cameron's community service, which involved teaching computer literacy to seniors at a library and was apparently boring but satisfying. About Destiny's probation, which she was handling with the kind of resigned grace that came from accepting consequences while still believing she'd done the right thing. About Ricky in Costa Rica, trying to decide if he'd stay or come back to a new American city under a new name with new opportunities. About Jaden and his visions, which were getting more frequent and more specific, and whether they should find him a specialist or just accept that their youngest child was cosmically connected to a psychic alpaca and roll with it. "I'm tired," Sukmi said finally, around midnight, after the pizza was gone and the conversations had circled back on themselves 3 times. "I'm so tired. But I'm also, I don't know. Grateful? Is that the word? That we're all here. That we survived. That we're still a family despite everything." "Despite everything," LaShonda echoed. "That should be your family motto." "The Kim family, despite everything, we're still here," Destiny suggested. "I like it," Cameron said. "Very on brand." They cleaned up together, well, everyone except LaShonda and Sukmi, who were both still recovering from their respective injuries. They loaded the dishwasher, took out trash, wiped down counters, did all the small maintenance tasks that kept a household functioning. And then, one by one, they went home or went to bed, leaving Sukmi alone in her kitchen with its panic button and its security cameras and its lingering smell of pizza and possibility. Her phone buzzed. A text from Thomas Pemberton, the man who'd warned her about his family's plans. "I heard about the arrests. Thank you for not mentioning my involvement to the FBI. I know I deserve prosecution too, for my role in everything. But I'm grateful for the mercy. If you ever need anything, truly anything, call me. I owe you a debt I can never repay." Sukmi didn't respond. She wasn't interested in debts from men who'd enabled violence for decades before finding conscience in old age. But she appreciated the sentiment, in a distant, complicated way. She went to bed thinking about the triple penetration incident, about how trauma could hide for decades before surfacing, about how violence had roots that went deeper than anyone wanted to acknowledge. But she also went to bed thinking about survival. About her family, weird and broken and somehow still intact. About children who made terrible choices and learned from them. About friends who stopped trucks and ran for office without knowing anything about government. About ex-husbands who protected from a distance. About drug dealers who found conscience. About everything that had happened and everything that would happen and the exhausting, impossible work of just continuing to exist. She dreamed about The Guiding Light, that old soap opera her mother had watched religiously before she died. Stories that went on forever, that never truly ended, that just kept cycling through drama and resolution and new drama, perpetually. That was life, she thought, half asleep and fully medicated. Just a soap opera you couldn't cancel. Playing on a channel nobody chose. With actors who showed up whether they wanted to or not. And the only option was to keep watching. Or keep participating. Or both. Until the final credits rolled. Whenever that would be. Hopefully not soon. Chapter 10, The Wedding That Never Was, or Maybe Always Will Be. Todd proposed on a Thursday afternoon at Kim's Killer Meat Shack, in front of 12 customers, 2 health inspectors, different ones, friendlier ones, and LaShonda, who immediately started crying despite claiming she didn't do romantic shit. He didn't have a ring. He had a basket of fruit, watermelons, cantaloupes, honeydew, arranged with the kind of care that suggested he'd thought about this for a while. "Sukmi Kim," he said, setting the basket on the counter like an offering to a temperamental deity, "I know we tried this before. I know we failed. I know 31 days in Vegas doesn't qualify as a real marriage by most people's standards. But I love you. I've always loved you. Even when I was gone, even when I was stupid, even when I was collecting Victorian medical equipment and making you uncomfortable. I want to try again. For real this time. Will you marry me? Again? Sukmi looked at the fruit basket. At Todd. At the customers who'd stopped eating to watch. At Lashonda, who was openly weeping into a napkin. She thought about everything. The shootings, the arrests, the children and their crimes, the psychic alpaca, the truck stopping, the militia rally, all of it. Every ridiculous, impossible thing that had happened. And she thought, why not add one more ridiculous thing to the pile? Yes, she said. But we're doing it right this time. Real wedding. Real planning. The whole absurd production. Todd kissed her. The customers applauded. Lashonda blew her nose loudly. And somewhere in the universe, the alpaca probably nodded in approval, though nobody asked Jaden to confirm. Wedding planning began immediately and was a disaster from the start. First problem, venue. Sukmi wanted something simple. Todd wanted something that honored their journey. Lashonda wanted something with an open bar. They compromised on a restored barn outside Fort Worth that claimed to be rustic elegant but was really just a barn with string lights and delusions of grandeur. Second problem, guest list. Sukmi had 6 children, 5 baby daddies, 3 of whom she was still speaking to, approximately 7 ex-husbands if you counted the commitment ceremony with Derek, extended family she barely knew, regular customers from the shop, and people from the internet who felt personally invested in her life because they'd watched her go viral multiple times. Todd had his security team, some guy named Blaine from his Victorian medical equipment collecting group, and a sister in New Orleans who bred peacocks for reasons nobody understood. They settled on a guest list of 80 people, which immediately became 140 when people started asking if they could bring plus ones and emotional support animals. Third problem, the dress. Sukmi went to 3 bridal shops before accepting that wedding dresses were designed for women who were shaped like romantic novel heroines, not middle-aged sandwich shop owners who'd given birth 6 times and had a recent gunshot scar. She ended up at a vintage shop in Dallas, near Oak Lawn, where a woman with too many piercings and an encyclopedic knowledge of 1960s fashion found her a cream-colored dress that Jackie Kennedy might have worn to a very casual state dinner. "You look like a stunner," Lashonda said when Sukmi tried it on. Like if Jackie Kennedy ran a sandwich shop and survived multiple assassination attempts. That's weirdly specific. That's you, girl. Weirdly specific is your brand. Fourth problem, Cameron's community service schedule conflicted with the wedding date, and the judge wouldn't give him a day off because apparently my mother's second wedding to the same man wasn't considered a valid excuse for missing court-ordered service. They rescheduled. Then rescheduled again when Destiny's probation officer scheduled a mandatory check-in for that day. Then a third time when Marcus's investment firm announced a mandatory training session that he couldn't miss without losing his job. They finally settled on a date 3 months out, a Saturday in late spring when Texas weather would either be perfect or apocalyptic, no in between. The week before the wedding, disaster struck in multiple forms. Monday, the caterer called to say they'd been shut down by health inspectors for body lice found in the kitchen. Body lice. The owner claimed it was sabotage from a competitor, which might have been true but didn't change the fact that Sukmi now had no caterer 1 week before her wedding. Lashonda suggested they just make sloppy Kims for everyone. "We are not serving meat sandwiches at my wedding," Sukmi said. "Why not? It's your signature dish. It's who you are. I want this one thing to not be about sandwiches. Just one thing in my life that isn't defined by ground beef and gochujang mayo." They found a replacement caterer who charged double and offered crawfish a fee as the main course, which felt thematically confused for a Fort Worth barn wedding, but Sukmi was too tired to argue. Tuesday, Kayla called crying because Derek and Jason had RSVP'd yes to the wedding and were planning to attend together, openly as a couple, and she didn't know how to feel about it. "Do you want them there?" Sukmi asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to see them, wants them to see me successful and okay. Part of me wants to tell them to fuck off forever." Both of those feelings are valid. Can I bring both feelings to your wedding? Baby, everyone's bringing their trauma to this wedding. Might as well make it a full set. Wednesday, Todd's sister Maureen arrived from New Orleans with 3 peacocks in crates because she'd assumed they'd want exotic birds at the ceremony for ambience. We don't want peacocks, Sukmi told Todd. I know. I told her that. She brought them anyway. My sister doesn't really process the word no very well. The peacocks were loud, territorial, and one of them bit Cameron when he tried to move their crate. They spent the next 3 days in Todd's backyard, screaming at dawn like they were being murdered, much to the delight of his neighbors who'd apparently been looking for a reason to file noise complaints. Thursday, the barn venue called. There had been a small fire. Not big enough to cancel the wedding, but big enough that there was now a charred section of wall that they were working on addressing before Saturday. How did the fire start? Sukmi asked. We're not entirely sure. Something about string lights and faulty wiring and possibly a raccoon. A raccoon started a fire? Nature is unpredictable, ma'am. Friday, Jaden had a vision. A big one. Eyes rolled back, speaking in that wrong voice, the whole production. He was at the dinner table when it happened, surrounded by family who'd gathered to help with last-minute wedding preparations. The Lone Ranger rides at midnight, not Jaden said. The watch ticks backward. The prairie house burns but everyone survives. The light guides but also blinds. The fruit basket contains truth. The truth contains nothing. Nothing contains everything. Then he blinked, normal again, and went back to eating mashed potatoes. What the fuck was that? Destiny asked. Wedding prophecy, Jaden said in his regular voice. The alpaca says something important is going to happen at the ceremony. He's not sure what. Time is weird and metaphors are confusing. Great, Sukmi said. My psychic son's alpaca is predicting cryptic wedding drama. That's exactly what I needed this week. Cameron pulled out his phone, Googling frantically. The Guiding Light, that was a soap opera that ran for like 70 years. Little House on the Prairie is obvious. Lone Ranger is a cowboy thing. Pocket watches tick forward, not backward, unless time is literally reversing. Fruit basket. The proposal, Marcus said. Todd proposed with a fruit basket. So what does it mean? Kayla asked. No idea, Cameron admitted. Could mean everything. Could mean nothing. Could mean Jaden's metaphor processing is getting weirder as he gets older. I'm 9, Jaden said defensively. My metaphor processing is age-appropriate. That night, Sukmi couldn't sleep. She lay in bed thinking about the wedding, about Todd, about the absurd journey that had brought her back to marrying the same man she'd married in Vegas 7 years ago. She thought about her children, all 6 of them, scattered across Texas and Costa Rica, making their messy lives work despite everything. About Ricky, who was maybe coming to the wedding or maybe not, he was still deciding. About Cameron and his community service, learning to code legally now, teaching seniors at the library. About Destiny and her probation, her feminist literature, her unwavering conviction that she'd done the right thing. About Marcus and River, who'd sent a gift registry contribution with a note that said, "Congratulations on finding love twice with the same person, that's statistically fascinating." About Kayla at books and more, making peace with her father's existence if not his choices. About Jaden and his visions, this strange child who saw things nobody else could see. She thought about LaShonda, about friendship that survived everything, about arms that stopped trucks and hearts that refused to quit. She thought about Kim's Killer Meat Shack, about building something from nothing, about meat and mayo and cream cheese becoming a legacy. And she thought, this is enough. Whatever happens tomorrow, this life has been enough. Saturday arrived with perfect Texas weather, 75 degrees, slight breeze, sky so blue it looked painted. The barn looked better than expected. The fire damage had been covered with flowers, turning disaster into decoration. The peacocks had been corralled into a separate area where they couldn't attack guests but could provide ambience from a safe distance. The caterer arrived with vats of crawfish étouffée that smelled incredible and thematically confused, but nobody cared anymore. Guests arrived. All of them. Derek and Jason together, looking nervous but present. Marcus, son, with River, who was stunning in a purple suit. Kayla in a dress she'd probably bought with her books and more employee discount. Destiny and Cameron in formal wear that made them look like adults instead of the teenagers they'd been just months ago. Jaden in a tiny suit, pocket watch hanging from his vest because he'd insisted it was important for the prophecy. LaShonda was maid of honor despite her arms still being in braces. She wore a dress the color of peacock rage as she described it, with her hair done up and makeup that made her look like she could rule a small country if she wanted. Ricky had sent a video message from Costa Rica, his face tan and happy, saying he couldn't make it but loved them all and wished them happiness and would they please name their first child together after him, which would be awkward since Sukmi was done having children and also Ricky was a terrible name for a baby. Todd's sister Maureen was there with her peacock breeding enthusiasm. Philip Chen attended as a guest instead of a lawyer for once. Hawaiian shirt, Marcus Chen the original, was there via video call from witness protection, looking healthy and sober and grateful. Even Thomas Pemberton sent flowers with a card that said congratulations. May your union bring peace your family deserves. The ceremony was set for 4 p.m. By 3:45, everyone was seated. The string lights glowed. The peacocks screamed occasionally but mostly behaved. A guitarist played instrumental versions of songs that probably had lyrics about love but were unrecognizable without them. Sukmi stood in the barn's makeshift bridal suite, really just a storage room with a mirror and illusions, and looked at herself. 41 years old. 6 kids. 5 baby daddies. 7-ish ex-husbands. 1 sandwich shop. Multiple viral videos. Survivor of shootings and lawsuits and medical emergencies and psychic prophecies. About to marry the same man twice. You ready? LaShonda asked from the doorway. I don't know. Am I? Nobody's ever ready, Sukmi. You just do it anyway and figure it out as you go. That's terrible advice. It's the only advice that matters. They walked down the aisle together, no traditional father giving away daughter shit, just 2 women who'd survived everything walking toward the next thing. Todd stood at the altar in a suit that actually fit him, looking nervous and happy and exactly like the man who'd proposed with Victorian medical equipment and then disappeared for years before coming back and never leaving. The officiant, a woman Cameron had found on a website called Weddings Without Weird Religious Baggage, smiled and began. We are gathered here today to witness the union of Sukmi Kim and Todd Pennington. Again. For the second time. Which is either very romantic or very stubborn, depending on your perspective. The guests laughed. Sukmi caught Todd's eye. He was crying already, the absolute mess of a man. Marriage, the officiant continued, is a choice we make daily. Not just once, at an altar, but every morning when we wake up and decide to stay. To fight. To forgive. To try again. Sukmi and Todd are making that choice today. And they've made it before. And they'll make it tomorrow. And that's what matters. She asked for the rings. Cameron stepped forward with them, simple bands, nothing elaborate, purchased from a jeweler in Dallas who'd given them a discount after recognizing Sukmi from the viral videos. Todd, do you take Sukmi to be your wife? To love and support through sandwich shops and criminal children and psychic alpacas and all the chaos that seems to follow this family wherever they go? I do, Todd said, his voice steady despite the tears. Sukmi, do you take Todd to be your husband? To love and support through security jobs and Victorian medical equipment collections and protective stalking behaviors that are problematic but also kind of sweet? I do, Sukmi said, and she meant it. She really meant it. Then by the power vested in me by the internet and the state of Texas, I now pronounce you. The girl lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling of her small room in a cramped apartment in Dallas. Her name was Sukmi Kim. She was 12 years old. She'd been born in America, but her parents spoke only Korean at home. She was caught between worlds, too American for her parents, too Korean for her classmates, belonging nowhere completely. Downstairs, her parents argued in rapid Korean about money, about work, about the restaurant they were trying to open, about whether they'd made a mistake coming to America, about everything that worried them. Sukmi tuned them out. She was good at tuning them out. Instead, she imagined. She imagined being grown up. She imagined having children, 6 of them, maybe, all different, all chaotic. She imagined owning a restaurant, not like her parents' struggling venture, but something successful, something people loved. She imagined a best friend who was fearless. She imagined ex-husbands in drama and surviving things that seemed unsurvivable. She imagined a life that was messy and complicated and ridiculous and full. Not the life her parents wanted for her, quiet, obedient, successful in traditional ways. But a life that was hers. Authentically, impossibly hers. On her desk sat a basket of fruit her mother had bought from the Korean grocery store. Watermelons, small ones. Cantaloupes. Honey-dew. They'd been there for 3 days, getting overripe, and nobody had eaten them. On her wall hung a poster of Madonna, the Like a Prayer era, controversial and unapologetic. Her parents hated it. Sukmi loved it. Next to her bed sat a stack of romance novels she'd borrowed from the library, with their impossible love stories and happy endings that felt like lies, but beautiful lies she wanted to believe. She picked up a pen and her notebook, the one she kept hidden from her parents because they'd disapprove of how she wasted time writing stories instead of studying, and she wrote. Sukmi Kim owned a sandwich shop. She had 6 children by different fathers. Her life was chaos. But it was her chaos. And somehow, she survived it all. She wrote about drug dealers and psychic sons and daughters who hacked television broadcasts. She wrote about trucks stopped by sheer will and militia rallies gone wrong. She wrote about a best friend with arms that looked like lobster claws but a spirit that couldn't be broken. She wrote about men who returned and men who left and men who were never really there at all. She wrote about a wedding. 2 weddings, technically. To the same man. About love that failed and tried again. About choosing chaos over safety. About surviving. And as she wrote, the line between imagination and memory blurred. Had she lived this already? Was she living it now? Would she live it someday? The ceiling above her bed had water stains that looked like clouds. Or countries. Or the future. Downstairs, her mother called her name in Korean. Dinner was ready. She needed to come down. Stop wasting time. Stop dreaming. Sukmi Kim, 12 years old, caught between worlds, belonging nowhere, closed her notebook. But before she went downstairs, she looked at the fruit basket. The watermelon had a crack in it. Just a small one. And through the crack, she could see. What? Red flash? Seeds? Or something else? She blinked. Just a watermelon. Just fruit. Nothing more. But maybe something more. Maybe everything more. She touched the crack gently, and for just a moment, less than a moment, a fragment of time so small it might not have happened, she felt it pulse. Like a heartbeat. Like a promise. Like a story that was already written but hadn't been lived yet. Or had been lived but hadn't been written yet. Or was being lived and written and imagined all at once, in overlapping timelines that made sense only to 12-year-old girls who existed between worlds. Her mother called again. More insistent this time. Sukmi Kim went downstairs to dinner, leaving her notebook open on her bed, the last sentence unfinished. And they lived. The pen rolled off the desk. The fruit basket sat there, silent, full, waiting. The poster of Madonna watched with paper eyes. And somewhere in the multiverse of possibility, in a barn outside Fort Worth, in a timeline that maybe existed or maybe never would, an older Sukmi Kim stood at an altar with a man who'd loved her twice, about to say I do for the second time. The officiant smiled. I now pronounce you. And in both timelines, the imagined and the real, or the real and the imagined, or both real or both imagined, or neither, or something else entirely. The sentence remained unfinished. The promise unmade. The future uncertain. The story incomplete. Because some stories don't end. They just pause. Waiting for someone to pick up the pen and finish writing. Or start living. Or both. Or neither. Or something else entirely. In the apartment in Dallas, 12-year-old Sukmi Kim ate dinner with her parents. Rice, kimchi, bulgogi her mother had prepared with care and worry. They asked about school. She said it was fine. They asked about friends. She said she had some. They asked about her future. She said she didn't know yet. And that night, before bed, she wrote one more sentence in her notebook. The story isn't over. It never really is. Then she closed the notebook, turned off the light, and dreamed of watermelons exploding like prophecies, and children who saw the future, and women who survived impossible things, and sandwiches that changed the world, and a life that was messy and complicated and absolutely, impossibly, beautifully hers. Whether it had happened or would happen or was happening now. Whether it was real or imagined. Whether it mattered at all. It was hers. And that was enough.